Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 European Championship, the series, as hosted in collaboration with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. Sincere apologies for the slight delay there in getting started. We had some minor technical issues with regards to the microphone just before getting underway, but hopefully those have now been resolved, and as a result we can get on with the show and bring you all the action from round 4. Now, of course, as always, we start off with the pre-show at 7 British Summer Time or UTC +1. We'll be getting underway with that driver's briefing, that 5-minute window in which our drivers can raise questions with our trackside stewards, questions with regards to pit lane limits, alternative track limits, or any other questions that our drivers may have. And then at half past the hour, so in approximately 17 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with qualifying, the 15-minute session to determine who will be starting on that front row. And then as of quarter to the hour, quarter to 8, we'll be getting underway with the 75-minute race, the feature race, the one and only race of the evening. And then following that, we'll be bringing you those post-race podium interviews with the guys who finished in the top 3. In the commentary box, you've got myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And remember that this broadcast is being brought to you via free media tonight. We've got it on the NXTGEN Racing official Facebook page. We've also got it on the NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, alternatively on Twitch at twitch.tv TX141. And this championship, and indeed the whole series, would not be possible without the support of our fantastic partners, and our two primary partners for this championship being the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. Now, what about the SimGrid, you may ask? Who's the SimGrid? They are a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events dedicated to Assetto Corsa Competizione, and indeed, without them it would not be possible for us to host this league. They enabled us to be able to organise things. We've also got some members of their team supporting us tonight, indeed with regards to the Should, and it's fantastic to have them on board. And also a shout out to Coach Dave Academy, the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. If you're looking for information on how to get that extra 10 per second, then do check out Coach Dave Academy, because all the advice and more is there, and be sure to take a look. That's the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. Feel free to Google search them to find out more, as we say hello to IronDuck92 and Shadowstalker DBS in the Twitch chat respectively here, and hopefully everything's coming through for you guys now, all tickety-boo. Do apologise for the issues earlier. Now, going into tonight, let's talk a little bit about the championship standings. We can see that currently our top 10 consists of a breakaway leader, and that is Yves Fild in the Porsche 911 GT3R on 208 points, leading there by a significant margin of 44 points over Jonathan Atkinson in P2. However, where we've seen the Porsches dominate in terms of qualifying and be up towards the front in the races, it hasn't materialised that we have a runaway set of Porsches up front. Yves Fild has been the runaway leader, indeed, what the fact he's picked up 2 wins on the bounce and is looking to make it a third on the bounce tonight, after being taken away from the turkey of wins at Catalonia with the fact that he was deprived of the win due to a pace race stewarding penalty which dropped him down to P3. But Yves has really been the dominant driver so far, and then we have the army of Bentleys chasing after him, led by Jonathan Atkinson there, who's been a very consistent performer in the P2 position, 164 points, and only 8 points ahead from Brett Crewcamp, who we haven't seen too much of Crewcamp in terms of him being right up there all the time, but Crewcamp has been very consistent throughout and has really shown that consistency pays, much like Ross Bartle, who's nipping on his heels, only 6 points down in P4. And then we've got Ethan Faulkner there in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, the number 67 driver there on 135 points, really starting off the rest outside of our top 4 in that P5 position, and Faulkner looking to get a good result tonight, I am sure. Then we go down to our P11 to P20 standings, and we can see the driver last time out at Imola, who came in P2, was holding on to the win for a significant period of time, only to make a brief mistake right at the end in that very tense battle for the race win, and giving away the win to Field in the end by 1 corner. It was Mathis Voss, who is in P11 currently on 119 points, looking to bounce his way back into this championship. And indeed, I suspect he'll be looking to carry that momentum forward tonight, the number 222 driver on 119 points currently. We look a little bit further down, we can also see Brandon Warren there in P16 on 105 points in the Ferrari 488. The Ferraris have mixed results so far. And as we jump down to P21 to P30, we can see there that we have got the return tonight of Tobias Linden. You'll see him out on circuit. In P26 in the standings, the number 100 car on 78 points. Wasn't able to make the races last week, but it is a very tight midfield. Effectively, from P11 downwards, all of the drivers are separated by a very small number of points. And as we go down to P31 through to P40, You can see that we have had a couple of drivers retire from the series and they've been dropping their way down the order over the last couple of races. But we do have Tim Williams there in P33 in the McLaren 720S GT3, the number 797 driver on 67 points right now, looking to try and get a good result tonight and get himself a little bit further up the order, trying to get himself into that top 30 if he can. And then coming down to our last set of standings, we can see from P41 down to P51, again a number of retirees here, but we've also got some other drivers who either have not been able to attend all of the races so far or have just been towards the back of the pack. An example being Jay Wilcox there, who is down in P42 on 35 points and looking to have a good performance tonight. That is our championship standings, and now let's come on to the track. So we are tonight at Snetterton in Norfolk in England, and it's the Snetterton 300 variant, the longer variant of the three available at the circuit. And as we can see here, we have a total of 12 corners, and we'll see shortly when we go to the cameras on circuit, it is a very tight circuit. What with the fact that whilst you do have two quite long straights, you've got the centre straight which cuts up to the start-finish line, and we've also got the Bentley straight which connects the Williams corner of turn 7 to Brundle and Nelson at turns 8 and 9. Those are the two main straight line runs, but otherwise we've got a lot of tight and twisty corners here and some very narrow apexes for our drivers to navigate, but there are a lot of overtaking opportunities as well if you're brave on the brakes, particularly into turn 2 at Montreal there, the hairpin corner, and also it's a battle on the brakes into Brundle and Nelson, but you've got to be brave in order to get the move done. And we've also got that very tricky combination of Coram and Murray's turns 11 and 12 to wrap up the lap there, where you've got the extended right-hander that never seems to end, deflecting into that low-speed left-hander of Murray's before going onto the centre straight. Now, as for the rules tonight, of course, there is a mandatory pit stop in the race, which will require a tyre change and fuel being put into the car, 1 litre minimum, and this is within a 10-minute pit window, which dissects the race into two halves, effectively. So it's right on the halfway point as per the normal format, and we will shortly be getting underway with that driver briefing in just over 5 minutes. But in the meantime, as I'm hearing in from race control, it is the fact that at this point in time right now, we are just waiting to get underway and no major updates from race control, and we are counting down. So without further ado, let's head over to the circuit as it currently stands, and we see a number of our drivers parked in the pits right now and indeed waiting to get underway, making some tunes to their cars as well. But we did have the chance to catch up to a number of drivers prior to going racing tonight, before they got in the cars to go into their final practice session. And just to give you an idea, asking them about the race in advance, the one driver who we did immediately catch up with, albeit he is currently sat in the pit, is Crewcamp there, Brett Crewcamp, the South African driver from Grumpy Monkey Racing there, and he is currently P9 in the standings in this final practice session, albeit these practice times are not too relevant. Everyone just getting those little bits of time in at the last possible moment right now, just to get a feel for the circuit and get themselves set up. But what you can imagine here is the fact that as we talk about Crewcamp, what he was saying to me prior to tonight's race is that he feels tonight's race will be a grid shake-up for sure, and it's going to be an impossibly tricky track, and just about every corner has the ability to turn your delta red by a considerable margin, even when it feels like you nailed that corner. So Crewcamp in the Bentley, of course, a very strong car in the race, less so perhaps in qualifying, but we have seen the Bentley drivers really coming into a form of their own over the last couple of races. Crewcamp tonight really focused on the fact it is going to be a difficult circuit out there. Snetterton, a very tight circuit, and these GT3 cars in particularly with the wide Bentley, it is going to feel as though you're driving a big car around a small pond. But you can see some drivers making their way back out into the circuit with some time remaining, as we've got a Porsche off there coming out of the final corner. But here is Koloridis here, Petros Koloridis, the Greek driver, who is currently P12 in the final practice time sheets there. As you can see, 1.6 seconds down, the fastest time as set by Yves Fild, a 45.0. And the McLaren driver just making his way through turn 3 right now, through Palmer corner here, and heading up towards Agostini. And as he makes his way down, just having a clean run here and also getting a feel for the circuit and those track conditions. Now do keep in mind that we've got quite a cold circuit today. It is 17 degrees centigrade ambient temperature, 22 degrees on the circuit. We've got clouds over. We're not expecting rain to be forecast. It's going to be a rain-free race as we understand it based on the weather forecast. But indeed, those cold temperatures mean that our drivers are going to have to work a little bit extra harder in order to be able to get those tyres up to temperature, and it just means that they'll have to push a little bit. Of course, push too hard and then those tyre temperatures will get too high and you'll be taking those tyres out and experiencing graining, or at the risk of just taking the tyre off its cliff prematurely. We did also, as we say hello to Zoronic in the Twitch chat there, we did also have the opportunity to catch up with Richard Jepp once again. And Richard, of course, there in the Mercedes from Harwin Racing, the British driver, making his way around the circuit right now, as we can see. He was saying to me prior to tonight's race that he thinks he should be good around the midfield area. He's going to be in that midfield range there, so probably looking for just being outside that top 10, alternatively perhaps fighting for a low position within the top 10. He's never raced at a circuit before and only done 5 laps to get his track awareness medals or his track knowledge medals before practicing for the race, so it's going to be very fresh for him. But from the times he's seen others post in the practice sessions prior to tonight, he feels as though he should be okay. He just wants to be consistent and pray that he does not get caught up in any trouble. And to be fair for Jep, it has really been one of those seasons so far where it's been a difficult one for him. If there's been an instance somewhere along the race which has impacted a driver who's found their way up the order and got themselves into a good position, it is indeed Richard, and tonight he will be looking for that clear run indeed. So fingers crossed for Richard indeed. Good luck to all of our drivers, but we do hope, and I'm sure many of you tuning in tonight will be hoping that Richard has an instant free race night, because it does feel as though the instants follow him wherever he goes out on circuit. We also had a chance to catch up to our BMW driver, and that is Aloysinger, who I'm not sure if he's at the circuit right now. He is indeed, in fact, and he's just making his way around. And we can see him here making his way down to turn number 8 here. And the BMW M6 driver, what he was saying to me prior to the race was the fact that he's feeling pretty confident for tonight. However, despite the fact practicing the track quite intensively, he does hope to come a little further ahead in qualifying than the previous races, and suspects that qualifying is going to be the most important factor here, for the fact that it's going to be difficult to keep up after qualifying, given the fact that the BMW is made for straight line speed rather than for overall handling, no matter how hard you tune it. That's the way the balance of performance works here, and he's as a result feeling to himself that it's going to be quite slow coming out of the slow speed apex corners, particularly the hairpins such as Montreal at turn 2 and also coming out the final corner. So his goal is going to be to aim for consistency in the race and then just use the speed deployment of the BMW M6 to make himself as difficult as possible to overtake down the straights, particularly the centre straight and also the run down the Bentley straight down towards turn number 8. And I think the BMW is going to be something to catch all the way down there. Now, we are just getting the driver's briefing in, so we are going to listen into the driver's briefing, which should kick off any second now, and this will be brought to you tonight. It will not be brought by Kevin Smith, it will instead be brought by, I believe it is, Brian Nagy from the NXTGEN Racing administration team. We've had to switch over the individual bringing you that driver's briefing at short notice due to personal circumstances for Kevin, who's not able to join us tonight, but is watching in the stands. So we're just waiting for the driver's briefing to kick off, and I'll read out any questions we get as it gets underway for you. But in the meantime, as we check in the chat, we see that we've got Hookak in the YouTube chat there supporting the
we will park cars if lap is plenty long enough to run a good speed to get you guys spread out, to have the space when you come to run your time laps. Smaller field this week, so good chance for scoring points this weekend and racing without too many cars on the racetrack. So expect that you guys can give each other some more space this week, especially on the start. First couple corners, as you know, awfully tight, especially turn 2 of the hairpin. It's going to be very congested on the start of the race, so just be extra cautious. You're going to have to brake a little bit early and be prepared for, somebody to be out of shape or something in those first few corners. Long race, obviously it's an hour and 15 minutes. It's a very long time. Don't forget you got your pit stop in the middle with the pit window, where the change of tires and at least a liter of fuel is required to fill the pit stop. Live stewarding is here as always. We'll be dishing out penalties as needed, and reviewing incidents as they happen. We'll post that obviously in the chat as always. And that, please obey the blue flag, especially in qualifying. If your lap is invalid, you'll get the blue flag, remember. So just try to stay off the line of the faster cars that are on a hot lap to not impede them. And they will likely do the same for you if you're on a hot lap as well when you're getting the blue flag in qualifying. During the race, the blue flag is advisory, but you do have a couple laps to give way to the car that's behind you, but just you're not allowed to defend your position if they make the move on you. Basically, it's a courtesy rule to inform you that there's a faster car behind you, but you do not need to pull over and stop on the racetrack to let them go by. You just cannot defend them when they make their initial move to go past you. Other than that, pretty much all we got to go through. Rest is we've been through before. If you got any questions, you can post them in the chat. If not, we'll go to qualifying in 2 minutes. Best of luck. Thanks again for coming out, and have fun tonight.
So I believe we've got no questions coming there. That was the driver's briefing being brought to you by Brian Nagy from the NXTGEN Racing ACC GT3 organiser team. And everybody is leaving the driver's briefing room now and getting ready to go for the racing. So without further ado, we're going to head back to the track, and everybody's just waiting now, ready, counting down. And indeed, what was being mentioned there is the fact that we do have a lesser number of drivers tonight participating. To give you an idea, we have had a total of 28 out of our 44 remaining drivers in this series. We started off with 50, but we've had 6 dropouts so far. We've got 28 drivers arriving at the circuit tonight, remembering that our drivers are allowed to withdraw out of 3 races. If they withdraw from more than 3 races in this 8-race calendar, then as a result, they'll be disqualified from the championship. So they're allowed to take those 3 withdrawals, but they must attend at least 5 races overall. But with that in mind, as what Brian was saying, is that for everybody who has arrived tonight, it's a good opportunity for some good points on the board, even if you're towards the back. And without further ado now, with less than a minute to go before we get underway with qualifying, big questions will be asked to everyone. And as we were just saying with Loisinger there, he's looking to try and utilise the straight line speed of the BMW M6 as much as possible in order to hold on to those positions and make himself difficult to overtake on the straights. He'll probably bunch drivers up behind him over the course of a race lap, but once he gets on those straights, he should be able to fly away and be invulnerable to potential slipstream based overtakes. But we will wait and see whether he is able to pull it off there, or whether some other drivers may have some nifty tricks up their sleeve indeed. But whilst we are still waiting to get underway, we are just taking a look round right now to see what other drivers are doing. And I can tell you that right now, Tony Hill here, the British driver from Team ULAGs there, getting ready to go in the Ferrari 488 as well. And what Tony was saying to me prior to tonight's race, and a quick catch up with him, is that he's looking forward to the race. He feels that it's a hard track to overtake at, and he's hoping not to get lapped too many times. Tony, of course, has been down towards the rear of the pack over the last couple of races, but of course we have amateur and professional drivers alike racing amongst this pack. And what's the best way to get experience and build up your pace? It's to race amongst faster drivers and get used to racing amongst that company. There's always going to be a bigger fish, somebody faster than you, and indeed, Hill showing us that in the fact that whilst he may not be the fastest guy out on the circuit, he's still here to have fun and enjoy himself, and that's the spirit we're looking for in this championship, just as much as racing as fast as possible. As we hear there, we've got Chris Wall tuning in to support Tony, and that's great to see Chris Wall tune in. We've also got Classic Car Crazy on the YouTube channel wishing our championship leader Yves Fild the best of luck, and indeed supporting him. We've got quite the Swiss contingent tuning in on the YouTube channel. We've got the support for Tony on the Facebook page, and then we've got a mix of supporters on the Twitch channel, and we will be going racing very shortly. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen, for Go, Go, Go. So as we head back to the circuit then, ladies and gentlemen, we are going racing. We are having some audio issues which we are trying to fix. I think we've resolved those audio issues once again. Not sure what's happening here. We will fix them as quickly as they materialise. But what I can tell you is that we can see right now everybody out of the circuit and immediately trying to get these laps underway. They've got 15 minutes, of course. And now the big question is around here, do you want to try and be in the midst of a pack and try and get a tow down the straights? Or do you want to have clear track? You definitely want to have clear track here at Snetterton because of how twisty it is, particularly the middle sectors. And as a result of that, you do not want to be caught behind another driver. Now, what's the form we can expect? Well, we have been hearing rumours down in the paddock that a lot of drivers are expecting the Porsches, such as that of Marvin Lefloic, the French driver here, who is currently following Bartel around and is staying right behind him. Lefloic in the Porsche. The Porsches are expected to be the fastest cars here in terms of outright qualifying pace, and we have seen the trend over the course of the opening 3 rounds where the Porsches do seem to have that edge in qualifying and they get themselves up there in the race, that then they start to just taper off in the overall race towards the mid to end points, and that's where the difficulty can occur. And Lefloic tonight doing everything he can indeed in order to get some good points on the board after some challenging races, but he's been putting in all that effort. And we are going to jump on board, however, for Bartel to take us around for an opening lap. We ride on board then with the South African as he takes us around for the opening flying lap of this qualifying session. So coming into turn 1 here, a double apex right-hander. You want to try and go for that late apex and get a tight line there. And you can see Bartel taking a very tight line indeed before flowing down to Montreal. The hairpin here coming all the way down to first gear. Braking down for the gears, goes a little bit deep, but quickly sweeps the car, gets the rotation. A very nice turn through the corner then. Now headed up towards Palmer Corner here. Turn number 3, the left-hander. Coming down to third gear, and as he makes his way out of the corner now, charging up towards Agostini. Another hairpin tight corner following the long acceleration zone here, and he'll be coming all the way down to either second or first gear, most likely first gear, as he goes a bit deep once again, but he just gets the car stopped in time. Right on the edge there is Bartel, as he now heads up towards the left-hand area of turn 5, and he's just going to do a very gentle brake and lift off the throttle, and gets it very nice there before heading into Oggies, and then he'll be going through the double right-hand here. Oggies followed by Williams, turns 6 and 7, and Williams corner coming up right now. He's going to use the full width of the circuit and then just gradually get that throttle back on as he goes past the apex barrier there, and now he's going to charge all the way down towards turns 8 and 9. A long run here down the Bentley straight, but then you've got this very different complex of a left into right where you need to trail brake all the way into turn 9, and you're going to see turn 8 comes up the left-hander, and then turn 9 just suddenly appears out of nowhere, and he's got to stamp on the brakes at that point and get it rotated through. Very nicely done by the Bentley driver here, and now he's going to go through bomb hole corner here, turn 10, and now he's going up into Coram, and it's the long sweeping right hand, and you tell me where the apex on this corner is, folks, because it never seems to appear, and then bang, there's the apex as he makes his way through the corner and now into the left-hander to complete the lap through Murray's corner, turn number 12, and that's the long run down towards the start finish line. And what's going to be our opening pace lap here from the South African in the Bentley, Bartel is going to set for us a time which is a 1 minute 45.8. What does Lefloic achieve? He's only 300ths off in P2 there, and we take a look. We've got Atkinson coming across there, 2 tenths down our provisional pole sitter, and then we've got Harikonen, Kevin Harikonen there in P5 currently, quite a way off indeed. A lot of our drivers actually having a bit of a difficult outlap there, including Voss only setting provisional P4 for the time being, as he gets it very wrong coming out of turn 1 and actually goes into the wall there and now has to wait to reverse the car back onto the circuit, but he does so very gradually and making sure not to get in the way of anybody on a fast lap there. But Voss just getting a bit too much oversteer through turn 1, attacking the corners too much, and now returning into the trainer cars here to go around for another flying lap. We take a little look further down the order here, and we can see that we have got Joris Apple right now making his way around, the German driver here in the Aston Martin, making his way through at the left-hander of turn 3, and that's Apple Racing's driver there, and now making his way up towards Agostini here, coming down the brakes. The Aston Martin's expected to be in the mid-pack today, not expected to be the strongest cars here at the circuit, but you can see Apple doing a good job right now. He is currently 3 seconds down on our provisional pole sitter, but again, might be taking some time just to get those tyres into their operating window, and we have still got 10 minutes of qualifying left, and we look back up right now to the top of our board, and there is no change right now. Devaney Bartel are setting the pace by 300ths ahead of Lefloic, as we see here that we've got Apple making his way through turn 7 and heading up towards turns 8 and 9. Down the Bentley straight he goes. Now we've got Ingo Hormann, meanwhile, in the Porsche here, in at P19 currently, the German driver making his way through a Williams corner very shortly, and then he'll be going down the Bentley straight as well, and he is at the moment 2.1 seconds off of provisional pole, and doing everything he can, of course, to get in an even faster lap here. And it has been an interesting season so far for Hormann. He's always been battling around the P20 region in what was Zandvoort. He was looking a bit further up the order. It was a challenging race at Zandvoort for everyone, of course, with those very rainy conditions, those treacherous conditions. and he is continuing to push around here as he goes a little bit wide out of turn 9 there, but collects the car together, and we see that Richard Jepp has jumped into the pit, and indeed we've got Mills in the pits as well, but focusing on Horman right now. Let's see if he does improve on this lap. He's currently dropping down the order as we are not seeing a change for pole position right now, but we've got Ben Walker up into P2. We'll talk more about that very shortly. As Horman now comes out of the corner here, as Field goes provisional pole now with a 45.6. Does Horman improve from his current time here? And as he crosses the line, it is going to be from the German. It is not an improvement, so he stays in P25. He's been demoted down to P25. But meanwhile, up front, it is our championship leader of Yves Fild, the Swiss driver, who's now got himself up onto the front row for the time being with a 45.6. And the Porsche driver really looking strong so far. He is half a tenth ahead of Romain Delcomin, and that is the Belgian driver here you see going through turn 1 right now, also in the Porsche. We've got a Porsche front row as it currently stands, which is 3 tenths faster than our P3 man of Ross Bartle in the Bentley, as we see that Delcomin making his way through Montreal right now. And catching up with our drivers once again, we did have the chance to catch up with what was Kevin Harikonen going into tonight, and Harikonen right now in that provisional P10 spot. And as he makes his way through turn number 9 here, we can see he's on a 46.4 in terms of his qualifying time so far, almost a second down on provisional pole. But what he was saying tonight is that he hasn't got too much to say with regards to the circuit, other than he expects the Porsches to dominate the grid, and it'll be about survival tonight for him, even more so than Zandvoort. Now that is something to say from the Ferrari driver there from Intruder Racing. That is a little bit of a shock to the senses. When he said that to me, I was quite surprised, but I can understand what he means. He just wants to get the car home tonight. He's less concerned about the finishing position or even the qualifying position as he moves up to P8 there, so he's now on a 46.278, a good lap there from the Frenchman, and making his way down towards turn 2 once again. And it is going to be a challenge night because it's such a tight circuit, particularly at the start, as we heard briefly from Brian Nagy there in the driver's briefing. It was the case. It is advising everyone, do keep in mind this is a 75-minute race and it will be very tight on the opening lap here as the field is condensed together. But meanwhile, down in P13 right now from Metallica Racing, it is Jason Wilcox from the United Kingdom, another Porsche driver here, 1.1 seconds off of the leader so far. As we see, no change in time from the leaders. It's still a 45.6 for Yves Field setting that provisional pole, but we see there Wilcox making his way up towards Montreal, and we jump on board with the Porsche driver here as he continues to press round, and you're getting that view from the roll cage here as he comes out of turn number 2 and heads up towards turn 3. That's more on the dashboard rather than the roll cage, and as he heads into turn number 3 here, going through Palmer Corner, looking very composed there, and you can just see how he gets that natural rotation compared to the lap that we saw from Ross Bartle in the Bentley. Because we've got the engine towards the rear of the Porsche compared to the front of the Bentley, you can see he's got that weight coming around very quickly when he goes into the corners. He gets a lot more rotation, but of course it's a balancing act on the car, which Wilcox is doing a very good job of right now. He's got some yellow flags in sector 2 here, so he's got to keep an eye out for cars returning to the circuit here as he now makes his way into Uggies at turn 6 here, and he's going to have turn 7 awaiting him, Williams corner here, and here he should be able to lift off the throttle and then pound the throttle on Apex, and you're going to hear it. And he just drifts a little bit there, but you could hear him starting to build the throttle up. The car wasn't quite settled there, so he's lost approximately a tenth as he just drifted wide of the apex slightly and had to wait to get on the throttle. But we have got that track into optimum conditions right now, and track temperature staying at that 22 degrees centigrade, but his tyres should be up to temperature as he comes through turns 8 and 9 here, all the way down through the gears. A very nice run there through turn 9, and now heading up into Bombhole corner here. Got to lift off the throttle, be gentle on that apex because of the camber change in the road, and now heading into Coriam corner here of turn number 11, just gradually easing off the throttle, keeping a little bit of throttle, and he goes a little bit wide there. That's going to cost him a small amount of apex speed as he now comes into 12, and you can see how he was slightly off the line he wanted. He wanted to be all the way over to the right as he went into Murray's corner there, and in fact it's a jump back to the pit for Wilcox there, so he's decided to pit to put on a fresh pair and then go qualifying at one last time, perhaps with 1 or 2 laps remaining most likely, as we see that pole position now has jumped into the capable hands of the McLaren driver of Ben Walker from Distinct GG Racing team here, and you can see that the Briton right now really setting the pace at 45.4, only 4 hundredths faster than our P2 man of Romain Delcomin, and we've got Field right now 2 tenths down in P3, but the Briton, the McLaren, doing a stellar job there. And will anybody be able to respond with just over 4.5 minutes of this session remaining? That will be a big question. Of course, we will wait and see, but in the meantime, as we check into the chat, we do say hello to Governor ITR from the Intruder team, the Intruder Racing team there on the Twitch chat, who's helped us out a number of times in getting all of the data and telemetry that you love to see on the board, as we see that Walker jumping into the pits. And indeed, Governor, we've got a great night of racing ahead, that's for sure, as you say in the Twitch chat there. But coming back to the here and now and looking at one of the Intruder Racing team drivers, we've got Voss here, who last time out at Imola was very happy to finish in P2 and have that fantastic battle with Field all the way through the second half of the race. And you can see provisional P5 right now, half a second down on the leader, and with 4 minutes to go here, I do wonder, Voss really has been the driver who he's either been right out front at the start of qualifying, or he suddenly pulled a lap out of nowhere at the end of qualifying. And it has been the case, if we remember correctly, 3 pole positions so far out of 3. Will Voss be able to make it a 4th one? Well, I think this delta may be a little bit too large for Voss, but never say never. It's half a second right now, but miracles do happen. We've seen it in touring car, we've seen it in Formula 1, and will it be the case that we'll see it here tonight in the capable hands of the Frenchman as he makes his way through Williams White now and heads down the Bentley Straight once again? And as we check in with race control here, no major information or news from race control at this point in time, and indeed we are waiting and counting down for the end of qualifying. 3.5 minutes to go right now, and we stay with Voss for the time being, as I'm just checking in on the timing sheets, and no major changes right now up and down the field. But what I can tell you is that we do have Loisinger in the BMW in P13 right now, pretty much slap bang in the middle of the field, and we'll jump over to him very shortly, a second down on provisional pole. But staying with Voss for the time being as he makes his way through Coram corner here, just flying through that right-hander, looking very composed indeed, and now into the left-hander of Murray's to complete the lap as he goes through the left-hander there and charges down towards that timing line. Is this going to be an improvement from the Porsche driver? We will wait and see as he crosses the line, and it is going to be, it is pole position, provisional pole with 2.5 minutes to go, a 45.3, half a tenth faster than Ben Walker, who you're now looking at. Now, how will the McLaren driver respond? Because of course Ben would love to rise to the challenge, I'm sure, of going for that pole position and take away that quadruple crown of Voss of getting pole positions at every race so far, as we see Field just behind Walker there, and perhaps he's just observing what Walker's doing and trying to understand, okay, if I'm going to qualify behind you, Walker, where are you stronger than me and where can I tactically gain an advantage on you? But meanwhile, coming down the order, we can see Loisinger here as the camera pans around to him, the Swiss driver right now in P13 in the BMW, and definitely getting himself into a good position here for the race. If he can qualify here just outside of the top 10, if there's any instance at the start, he could become a rolling roadblock of a BMW as he makes his way through the race, given the fact, as he was saying in the pre-race discussion I had with him, that he's looking to use the straight line speed this car to give him safety in the race. As we see, he gets it a little bit wrong through Bumhole corner there, and as he makes his way into Coram, just getting a nice run on the apex. But meanwhile, I can tell you that as we look back up towards the field a little bit further, Harikonen right now in that P7 position, the Ferrari driver doing a solid job in this qualifying session, 6.5 tenths off a provisional pole right now, but he'll be in a good starting position if all things continue as they are. 1.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. He's still got time to go, has Harikonen. We will wait and see what he's able to achieve with 1 lap remaining. Of course, this will be his final lap, and it's the final lap for the majority of our drivers now, as we do take a look a little bit further down the order here, and we do have Sylvain Pastoris, the Swiss driver here, making his way around in P25. As I'm hearing, Moreira has been disqualified from qualifying here, and I'm just going to check in as to why that is, and I'm not 100% sure right now, but Moreira has been disqualified from qualifying in P28, so he'll be starting right at the back of the grid, and that's 27 drives remaining qualifying, as Pastoris right now is the last of our runners out on circuit outside of Tardioli and Mills, who are in the pits in P26 and 27 respectively, but Pastoris in P25, 2.2 seconds down on the pack. As we take a quick look over here to Linden in P19 right now, the Swede tonight going into the race was saying about the fact that he was looking just to have a consistent race after missing out on Imola last week, which he was really gutted to, but he's really looking forward to tonight and looking to have that consistent race. Well, he's got to be careful of riding high on the curb there, as we saw he clipped the sausage curb at turn 9 just a little too high, and I think he had to collect the car, and it was a bit of a brown pants moment for the SLS Racing driver as he is making his way around right now. And looking back up, I can tell you that Voss right now still at that provisional pole with a 45.3 as we follow Linden to the end of his current line. Tobias Linden, he comes out and he will be, I think he might even get one more lap in here. He's going to just about get across that timing line before his qualifying session is over, so he'll have one more lap available to him, and what will he be able to do with it? As we see Walker comes across the line here, and Walker does not improve, neither does Field does improve. He's 1/10 now off of our provisional pole sitter, but he does not improve to get himself up onto that front row, as we see he continues his way around, as Voss here is continuing to put in the laps in terms of his qualifying session. He's on his final lap right now, and he is as he goes wide there out of Williams. Well, I think it's the case that lap is going to be scrapped, but can Delcom perhaps take away that pole position for Voss? He'll be the closest man to do it as he gets it wrong into turn 8 there, and he goes flying off the circuit, and a Bentley follows suit there, and I think that's not the Bentley of Crew Camp, I can tell you that much. I'm not 100% sure who that is who's had the run off there, but it is the case that it's gone very wrong. So as a result, I suspect that means that unless somebody's able to pull something magical out, as Bartle's in the pits right now, and what about Gianpetro, who's qualified P6 here? We still on the lap, the Valkyrie Esport driver, so we'll keep an eye on him right now in case he can perhaps throw a surprise right at the end of the qualifying session. But I think pole position is going to go to Voss here, but we will wait and see. There's been no other major changes up the order so far, but Gianpetro, who we've typically seen down in towards the lower half of the top 20, doing a very good job tonight to get himself into P6 as it currently stands. Can he improve? I don't think he's going to be improving, but we'll wait and see, as Voss is fully committed to the pit now after having that run off. He makes his way through a Coram corner, does Gianpetro. Only one more corner to go after this one, as we see Lafloig is just behind him in P7 as in the pit, but Gianpetro 4 tenths down on our provisional pole sitter. He comes charging down the straight and he jumps into the pit, so Voss takes the pole position. That is 4 out of 4 for the Porsche driver. A fantastic job there, and now we get ready to go racing. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we are getting ready to race. We've got 4 minutes to go before the rolling start procedure takes place, and Voss have made it 4 out of 4 so far in terms of qualifying. It is the case that it is going to be a challenging one, and we are hearing, and you're correct there, Governor, that with regards to Moreira, he used return to garage in terms of jumping back to the garage rather than actually driving back to the garage, and all of our drivers have been told they will be disqualified from the qualifying session if they use that ability. They need to drive the way around and pit naturally as you would on a real circuit, so that's why the disqualification came in, and they are starting at the back. But really the big question will be this time for our pole sitter: can he find a way to bring home the win? This will be his 4th attempt at trying to bring home the win, and you can imagine that after 3 attempts where there's always something that has come up in the end, he'll be thinking to himself, this has got to be my chance, and it's the perfect circuit for it. We've got no rain, we've got moderate temperatures, and it means that with a tight and twisty circuit as well, and with the Porsche being so strong around here, we can see that in our top 5, we've got 3 of the top 5 being Porsches, and we've got 2 Porsches just outside the top 5 in P6 and P7. Everything is looking good for Voss, but can Mathis do it, or will it be the case that somebody takes it from him? Could it be this man right now, Walker, Ben Walker from the United Kingdom, who brings a surprise here? He's been a good driver throughout so far, Walker, but the fact we're coming to the end of the first half of the season, well, there have been 8 races in this being race number 4, but Walker is going to have to put in the effort tonight indeed, because he's got 2 very fast drivers behind him in the form of Romain Delcom, who is currently there in P3, the Belgian driver from Valkyrie Esport, a very fast driver, and we have seen it time and time again. It's showing great pace throughout the season. And then our championship leader right now, Field, starting P4, but we know he loves to start just slightly off of the front row. Typically, we've always seen him just here around P4 to P8, but he starts there and he finds his way up the order. There's a little bit of luck involved, in his own words, sometimes with regards to drivers making mistakes and taking one another out, but he benefits, and he's so fast at getting himself up towards the front over the course of the opening half of the race. And can Field make it 3 on the trot tonight, or will somebody else take the win? That'll be the big question, as we see Zoronic there cheering on Linden, and as we look back to the exterior cameras right now and take a look further down the order, we can see that we have got Ross Bartle there in P5, the Bentley driver, and the first of the front engine rear-wheel drive cars for a significant margin. You've got to go all the way down to P9 with Jonathan Atkinson for a front engine rear-wheel drive car. We've got all mid-engine rear-wheel drives minus Bartle, really surrounded by the engines being towards the rear of the car, whereas he's got his at the front in the Bentley. And Atkinson and Bartle both doing very well in the championship so far. far and looking to get solid points on the board. A bit of a difficult one for Crew Camp by comparison, down in P17 here, and he'll be looking at trying to get as many points on the board, but he was saying that it'd be a grid shake-up, and it has been a shake-up for Crew Camp with the fact that he is down in this P17 position with 1.5 minutes remaining before we go racing, or indeed with the parade lap before we get underway of racing. But also we can see that we've got Linden down in P21 here, and as he did mention, I mentioned earlier, that he was expecting the Porsches to be dominant, and that qualifying was very important, but his goal was just to stay on track and to not fight for positions. He just wants to be in the top 25 by the end of this one. To clarify, it's all about consistency and just getting the car home tonight. He doesn't want to do any major theatrics or heroics. Meanwhile, all the way down at the back, we have got Gareth Mills and Moreira. That's Hilda Moreira lining up on the back row. We've got the South African of Mills here, just waiting to get underway in the Audi, of course. And the Audi here, it'll have a lot of rotation that rear, but we see Mills towards the back. But again, perhaps one of the slower drivers here from GM Racing, but it is the case that he'll be looking to have some fun and perhaps have some good battles with Tardioli, Moreira and Pastoris in the race, as we are only half a minute now away from starting the procedure. And we see Helder Moreira here at the back in the Aston Martin. What the fact he was disqualified from qualifying for return to grid, and now we wait to get underway here as we look up towards our front drivers here, everybody finalising their setups before going racing. Place your bets, folks. Who's going to be the winner? Let me know who you're cheering on as well in the chat. We haven't got long to go, 10 seconds, and then it will be down to Voss and Walker to take us away from the front of the grid, and let's see what happens come the end of the full 75 minutes. So as he pulls off the line, Voss immediately pulling off there and making his way down towards turn one. And you can see everybody right now just cautiously pulling off there, getting an ample time to try and get those temperatures up to temperature. And I can also tell you there was also return to grid for another driver out there. So it was Moreira and also Mills. They both used return to grid as we understand it. So that's why they were on the back row. So Tardioli was the last of our drivers who put in a qualifying time that wasn't disqualified. So just bringing you that information there. But that is the last we'll hear from the qualifying session, and now we look to get going with the racing, of course, as we see Voss making his way through Montreal here very cautiously. And indeed, all our drivers will try and get a little bit of temperature in those tyres, but they won't try to overdo it too much, because what with the low track temperatures here, you want to get those tyres up into the operating window, but you've still got to think about the fact you don't want to overcook them early. You want them to come up naturally to temperature. And this is a very different race than what we saw at Imola last week. Imola, we had soaring temperatures, and our drivers were complaining at just how hot it was and the fact that the compound was just so difficult to keep within the optimal operating window. But tonight it will be that big question, of course, of being able to keep it all the way together, all the way home. As we see Horman here in P13, he just pipped Loisinger to P13 in the end, and the German driver in the Porsche as well. Behind Junior here, we've got Dave Junior just ahead of him, making his way right now through turn number 4. That's Agostini, of course, and the Mercedes driver here up towards the head of the Mercedes column. Indeed, he is the lead Mercedes driver in terms of qualifying today, and we look forward to seeing what Junior is able to achieve from Team SRHI as he makes his way right now through turn number 5 here, and just giving himself ample space to be able to get those tyres and brakes warmed up. Everybody using the time as much as possible. We've got a long parade lap here. It is a long lap at Snetterton, and it's good for our drivers to get everything the optimal window as they're waiting to head around to get charging off the start line. We can see here we've got Vilkowski, the German driver right now. Robert making his way through Williams in the Porsche there. P18 for the back to motion driver, and it's going to be a difficult one today, I suspect, but he'll have the pace he'll feel to get himself up towards the top 15 as we see everybody continuing together. Hill alongside him there in P19, and keeping in mind that Tony Hill was looking to just have fun out there tonight, as we caught up with Tony earlier, as we said. And indeed, it's going to be one of those ones where I think the Ferrari driver could be on for a positive result here. He's definitely looking relatively strong, being in a P19, the highest position that he's qualified in so far, if I remember correctly, or one of the highest from the ULAGS team there, and making his way up towards turn 8 right now. And of course, he has got Crew Camp just a little bit further ahead of him, as everybody's getting themselves settled into that qualifying order. And we can see now Voss bunching everybody up, going in towards Coram right now. And this is where Voss will want to time that start as best he possibly can. Try and get the jump on everybody, as they've only got 2 corners to go, and we get ready to go racing for 75 minutes of this race round Snetterton 300. Making his way very slow. You can see how Voss is controlling that pace right now, trying to catch everyone here. He feels ready to go, but he wants to get it right, and we'll wait now to get racing. And it's lights out, away we go. Oh, no, it's not. He's just pulling the feint. And it's lights out and away we go, and Voss not getting the best of starts there. We can see that Walker right up his backside in towards turn 1 here, but we can see everybody concertinaing down into the opening corner. Voss holding on for the meantime, but Walker meanwhile side by side as they make their way through turn 1. The cameras flicks around and we can see a number of drivers going wide there. We've got the Ferrari of Harry Conan going flying off the circuit there down into P8 right now, and there's contact. He's been taken with Junior there, both of them going flying off the circuit. Meanwhile everybody else trying to make their way through the corner. We've got the Porsche, I think that's Delcom being spun as he's gone off the circuit. I'm not 100% sure there whether that's Delcom. It's a Valkyrie Esports driver, so it's the other Porsche of Valkyrie Esports that was not Delcom, but there has been a lot of contact going through the first couple of corners. We look a little bit further down the order and we can see Loisinger there, who's just been caught out a little bit as he goes wide out of the opening corner out of turn 3, and as they make their way into turn 4 into Agostini, we've got contact between what looks to be Velkoski and Loisinger, albeit very brief contact there. I think there's a little bit of a door rub and Loisinger losing the pace there. He's in a side-by-side battle with the Mercedes of Lambrecht as they make their way through turn 5, and he goes wide there as Loisinger, and Lambrecht jumps up the position immediately, and we can see that Hill following suit here. But we have had a lot of drivers being caught up in instants early on, as we see Loisinger really just getting caught up around everyone. He had the inside line though into turn 6, and as he goes into 7 he holds on for the time being, and Hill not able to capitalise on the BMW driver's mistake through turn 5, and as a result now he's going to fall back, and you can see how that gap is already opening up. But meanwhile up the front we can tell you that Voss leading right now ahead of Field. Field is up into P2 and Delcom in P3. Oh goodness me, and I think that's Atkinson. That is Atkinson off at turn 9. He's gone flying off the circuit there, and he's waited to get that car back onto the circuit as everybody comes charging through, and it is a huge concertina effect, and that is Hill ahead, the head of the train of cars there in P15 as everybody's bunching up behind Hill here, and it looks like Hill has gained massively here, but he's falling off of Loisinger as they make their way in towards Murray Corner at turn 12. So after one lap it is Voss leading ahead of Field by the gap of 0.4 seconds, and then it's Delcom behind in P3 followed by Bartle. Then we've got Walker in P5 behind Walker. Then we've got Lee Floig in P6 followed by Apple in P7, and then we've got Jep in P8. We look back to Richard Jep right now as they make their way through turn number 1. You can see the Harwin Racing driver here making his way down into Montreal Corner. He's got Faulkner behind him in P9, and then Crew Camp rounding off our top 10 right now with Coloridis in P11 there in the McLaren. But it's been all chop and change at the start. There's been some major contact in this race so far, and the biggest loser of it all, I have to say right now, is the driver of, well, it's Gian Petro, who started in P6 and he's in the pits already, and they're having to do repair work to the car, and he's going to get it sorted as quickly as possible. But Gian Petro having a disaster race, and there may potentially be a retirement as we look back up to the action right now away from the pit lane here, and we see that Brandon Warren in P17, he's gained a couple of places by the looks of things, the American driver from VRS Satellite Racing, but the Ferrari driver continuing to press around right now. And it has been a difficult start for a lot of drivers, and particularly in that midfield in the top 10. From P5 downwards, there was a huge instant, and the one who lost out the most, Gian Petro, after a very strong qualifying session, as we see Linden under a little bit of pressure in the rear view camera shot there. He's got Horman, who's dropped a long way down the order. Horman was starting in P13, and he got caught up in it, and Linden has got up to P19 as a result, and Horman's got the Aston Martin of Moreira that's got up to P21 already. Moreira looking for the move. He can't quite get it on the inside into turn 8, so as they make their way under braking into turn 9 here, it's going to remain as is for the time being, but you can definitely see how Horman is starting to struggle down the straights versus the Aston Martins. But once they go through those corners, particularly those medium and low speed apex corners, that Aston Martin falls away a little bit because he's able to hold a greater apex speed. You can see the front of that Porsche definitely mangled a little bit from contact earlier on, and as a result, Horman definitely in the thick of it. And I suspect we are going to be seeing some major penalties and contact penalties with regards to lap 1 very shortly. But meanwhile up front, I can tell you that the gap between Voss and Field has opened up to 2 seconds, but we have seen this before where Voss pulls up a big gap and it starts to be reeled in by Field over the race distance. But we look a little bit further back down the order right now, and we can see not too much chop and change right now. We see that Crew Camp and Faulkner still in P10 and P9 respectively. Crew Camp of course being the Bentley in this picture, and he has got Faulkner ahead of him, and Faulkner all over the back of what appears to be their Jep, who has had a good start, has Richard Jep, but we have got the Ferrari here who we ride on board on board with right now the Ferrari of Faulkner here, the Irishman from Distinct GG Racing. Oh, and that is somebody off there. That is a Ferrari off. And who on earth is that? I'm not 100% sure. That is a Ferrari that has spun somewhere, and we will try to find out for you who's dropped out. I think that's Harikonen. No, that's not Harikonen, but he is down the back of the field. That is the McLaren. That is Ben Walker. That is definitely Ben Walker, who's dropped all the way down the order, down to P25. Well, the British driver, after having a good qualifying session and a good start, something has gone very wrong there for Walker. We'll tell you what's happened as soon as we find out. Unfortunately, we can't bring you the replay because it typically causes things to freeze up and crash, and we don't get sight of the action that's going on. But we can see that Walker has dropped all the way down the order. Gianpetra is back out on circuit, mind you, ladies and gentlemen. That is almost a lap down on a good number of drivers here. We see Walker is back down to P25, and it all happened at Agostini corner. We will let you know what's happened as soon as we possibly can, but right now, back up front, Voss still leading, and we look a little bit further back and we can see that Bartel chasing after Lefloic, albeit he's got a gap of 0.8 seconds to Lefloic to close down, but he is in a safe zone right now. Is Bartel P5 and putting in a good performance as we see everybody behind trying to catch up to Bartel, and it is Jepp in particular in P7 who's under a little bit of pressure right now from Crew Camp, who is in that P8 position, but we have seen a number of drivers. In fact, we are missing some more drivers here. We've had some drivers fall down the order because there was the Ferrari of what was Harikonen. Well, it wasn't Harikonen, my apologies. It was the Irishman there of what was at the time Faulkner, and Faulkner, to give you an idea folks, is all the way down in P16. Now how this has happened we haven't seen it, but Faulkner has had an off as well because he was up there only moments ago, but we have got the Ferrari train now from P13 to P16, and it is Faulkner at the rear of it, and he's going to have to make a recovery right now, whereas Tony Hill, well, Hill starting down in the lower portion of the order. Well, the British driver here up into P13, I think he'll be smiling at this one. It's going to be a great opportunity if Hill can keep it together, albeit we still do have the best part of just under 70 minutes of the race to go, but it's all been drama already in the opening 5 minutes or so. But Hill could be on for a solid set of points if he keeps this up and just keeps it together. We are waiting to hear from the stewards as to some of the things that did happen on lap 1. We weren't able to catch it all on camera, of course, but you can see Tardioli there just getting a little bit closer is Nicholas behind Tony Hill as they make their way through Williams right now, and we see meanwhile that Lambrecht in P11 making his way down the Bentley straight here. The American driver Preston Lambrecht from Get Speed Racing in the Mercedes. He's got that BMW chasing him. You can see how the M6 is gradually closing up down the straight here. The straight line speed difference between these two cars not too major by comparison. We say the Ferrari versus that BMW. As we see there in the rear view picture, that is Tardioli going wide out of turn number 9, and he's just recovered the car, but he has got Warren now all over the back, and Brandon Warren getting closer and closer to the back of him, and it's not the case that Warren's able to make a move this time, but Tardioli from Valkyrie Esport definitely under a bit of pressure right now and feeling it is the number 135 driver as he heads through Coram corner and in towards Murray, but he goes a little bit wide once again, and I think Warren could be on for the move here as we jump on board with the driver, the American driver. He's going to go for the move. He's going to look into the left. Is he going to go all the way around the outside? He's going to look for the run around the outside here, and as they go into turn number 1, he's going to have to try and sweep it all the way around, but I think it's going to be a very tricky move, and in fact he backs out of it initially, and you can see behind Faulkner getting bunched up behind the pair of them and not able to find a way through. Although I say that, will he go for a move on the brakes into Montreal? He decides not to, but we do see that Tardioli goes a little bit deep there. He collects the car in the end, but it's so close to being on the limit, and that is what Tardioli's having to do to keep Warren behind him. He's having to drive on the absolute limit as the three of them go through Palmer corner, and they've got Linden just behind them in P17, who pretty like a piece of the Ferrari slice action there as they make their way down towards Agostini corner once again, and you can see that they're all bunching up behind Tardioli now, and this is giving Hill, meanwhile, 2.5 seconds up the road now, the opportunity to break away and consolidate that P13 early in the race. As we see that from Tardioli's perspective, that it's proven to be a very difficult opener for the Frenchman. Just hasn't quite got the pace that the guys behind have, but again, he has track position, he has every right to fight for it, and so he shall as Tardioli makes his way through Williams once again. Now, meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that at the moment there's been no major change in terms of our top 5, but we do have Richard Jepp, who is closing up a little bit on the back there of what is Apple at the front of your picture. That is the German Aston Martin driver, and then Richard Jepp is down in P7 right now chasing after him, and this is really the first battle outside of our top 5. We've got this midfield battle for P6 right now with Apple closing down, also getting closed down by Jepp, Krewkamp and Koloridis, and we've got Velkovsky jumping onto the back of this train very shortly as well, and then we've got a sizable gap to Lambrecht, who starts off P11 downwards as well. So our top 10 a little bit away from the rest of the field right now, but it is the case that we've got small pack starting to form as Junior has come into the pits. Dave Junior's come in and he's down the order right now in P28. We see him outside our commentary window. We're not going to jump to him right now, but I can see he is in the pits and he is the last of our runners right now, as we see that Jep's still under that pressure from Crew Camp, but not being attacked too heavily right now, but Crew Camp definitely there and looking to go on the attack. The Grumpy Monkey Racing driver there, who's got Bartle, the other Grumpy Monkey, further up the order. We see Bartle here, who is hunting down Lee Floic right now. The other South African here chasing after Lee Floic, just going into Agostini, turn number 4 once again, and it is the case that Bartle really starting to close down the Porsche driver right now. You can see there just how he's able to hold on to the back of that Porsche as they go through the hairpin corner, while the slower corners of the circuit, and that Bentley looks very composed and is chasing after the handling car in a great fashion. We know that the Bentley is very strong and stable, and it is looking to work out that way as he goes a little bit wide there out to turn 6, going up into 7, using the full track width, and that's cost him a 10th as he makes his way out to Williams. But we can see now as they go onto the straight, he should close up a little bit there using the straight line speed of that Bentley versus that of the Porsche. But meanwhile, further back, we see the Apple in P6 as the camera pans around here, making his way down towards turn number 8, and it is the case that the Aston Martin driver is still at the head of this column, but no change so far. And big questions will be asked in terms of who blinks first in strategy if it doesn't change when we get that pit window. But we see Koloridis there in P9 at the back of your camera shot as we jump over to Velkoski here, who is chasing after Koloridis. We jump on board with the Porsche driver as he makes his way through Coram corner here, and just out of the camera shot is Koloridis. You'll see him very shortly as they go through turn number 12. He'll cut across the centre of the dashboard there, and there he goes. And as they make their way out to turn 12, this train from P6 down to P10 not changing at the moment. Junior still in the pits, probably doing repair work to the car. Something has gone very wrong. But as we jump to the exterior right now, we see that Velkoski at the back of this hunt for P10, as meanwhile Loisinger still holding on to P12 as it currently stands, but he has got Hill getting closer and closer as the BMW driver. But as we have said time and time again, Loisinger's plan was to be the guy who has track position and then simply hold off the cars which are faster through the corners but have no straight line speed by comparison, and he's doing everything he can right now in order to hold on to this position as he makes his way out of Montreal. And you can see the difference between the two, and it is a case that as they make their way now through at turn number 3 here, that Loisinger doing everything he needs to hold on as Tony Hill continues to chase after him. It's got a bit of breathing room from Tardioli, who's making his way out of Palmer corner right now. And Tardioli starting to find a bit more pace, and he's actually keeping Warren and Faulkner behind him. And Linda, meanwhile, still at the back of this column of the Ferraris. The Aston Martin driver will be trying to cut his way through, but we will wait to see, of course, as I believe we've got Moreira back. Oh, and Moreira's gone very sideways there, and it looks as though there's been some contact between himself and Walker, because Walker's also got off the circuit. So the Portuguese and the Brits coming to blows as we've got a drive-through penalty for Harry Conan, who's in P19 at the moment, but Walker trying to make his way through the field, and I think there was some contact between himself and Moreira, because both of them went off together at Agostini, and it may have just been the case that Walker perhaps came into the corner too deep, but we'll let the stewards tell about that one. We just caught it in, and Walker was behind there, but definitely Walker trying to find his way back into the race, as is Atkinson, only a couple of places back up, but Walker dropping down the order once again, as we see Jonathan Atkinson now up into P21, and the British driver trying to find a way through here, as he's got the Porsche of Wilcox ahead of him now in P20, as they all come down into turn 9 for what is the 7th time of asking. All coming through the corner, you see Walker at the rear of the picture, a very menacing and angry looking McLaren, and trying to push his way through, as we hear that Harry Conan has got a drive-through penalty, and we can confirm that the P19 driver here, the number 723 car, it was due to the fact that he ran off the track after turn 1 and rejoined into the side of car number 10 to cause a collision on lap number 1. And car number 10, to give you an idea, folks, as to who he caused the collision with, well, that is Dave Junior, who is in the pits right now. We have already had one retirement, so we're down to 27 runners, and Junior still in the pits. I'm not sure if he will be rejoining. If so, that'll be down to 26. Hold on a second, that's Lambrecht off the circuit there. So Lambrecht has made a mistake as everybody tries to dodge the Mercedes driver, who's stricken in the middle of the road, and everybody successfully dodging him. Oh, and we've got a Porsche off there. I think not everybody was able to dodge, and that is the Porsche of Wilcox, who had to take major evasive action, but Lambrecht, I think, getting it wrong coming out to turn 1, and as a result, Wilcox having to jump off onto the grass in order to stay clear and safe of the Mercedes that was literally sideways across the road. And what a nightmare for those drivers to have to deal with that, but they were able to navigate it nonetheless, as we see Atkinson pulling away a little bit right now from Moreira. as he makes his way out of turn 18 and heading up to, not turn 18, my apologies, out of turn 4 and through 5 right now, and behind him he's got Moreira chasing after, and Walker as well, as we see that Moreira right now in P20, and he has got Walker between him and Atkinson, and there we can see from the time screens there that Walker has been able to get the move done on Moreira, and now he is chasing after the Bentley ahead of him, but he is pushing on right now and charging down the straight, and as we jump on board with Walker, we can see that is the case right now, trying to size up what is the Bentley ahead of him, but it's a long way to go. We've still got an hour to go come the end of this lap, and Walker will be trying to get himself up into that top 10 by the end of it, or at least as close as possible to it, knowing that he could have been potentially in with a chance of a podium here today, and Ben Walker will push like mad to get back up there, that you can bet, as he makes his way through Coram corner once again, and we can see no change so far, but he is closing gradually on Atkinson, and Atkinson, to be fair, a very fast driver here as well, and he did place himself inside the top 10, so these two definitely out of position as they come across the line to complete lap number 8 and head on to lap number 9, but they're out of position and will be trying to continue to make their way up through the field as we jump to the exterior cameras once again, and we see him making his way through turn 1 here, charging after the Bentley ahead of him, and as we look a little bit further up the order, we can see that in the battle now for what is P12, Tardioli still at the head of this Ferrari pack. We've got 4 Ferraris and an Aston Martin followed by another Ferrari, albeit that's the Ferrari at the back of the pack of Harikonen with that drive-through penalty, but Linden just sitting behind the Ferrari train right now and just doing everything he can to stay there in P7 in what is P16, as meanwhile Tardioli at the head here, where he's got past Hill, it should be pointed out, so Hill has lost the place. We didn't catch that on camera, but Hill making a mistake there coming out of Agostini, getting a lot of oversteering, the car not settling, he's had to wait, and Faulkner all over the back of him right now, and the British driver under a lot of pressure, as we see the Irishman of Faulkner charging after him and almost going into the rear of him into turn number 6 there, and he's got to be so careful. Faulkner, he won't want another collision after a disastrous start. He's got to try and find a way through here as they make their way through Williams and charge down the straight towards turn number 8 once again. Down the Bentley straight they go. And let's wait and see what happens when they get down the end here. Will he go for the move, Faulkner, or will he stay in behind? He's going to go for the move on Hill. He's going to the inside into turn 8, but Hill, will he be able to stay there? He won't be able to. He has to back out of it, Hill, and Faulkner gains the position. Now Warren will be the next one trying to put Hill on his hit list, as we see Brandon Warren right now, the American driver here in P15, charging after Hill, and he's got Linden all over the back of it, and the Aston Martin driver will be waiting. He'll want to try and follow Warren through, I'm sure, or whether he's using Warren as his pace car, he may even try and go for the move on Warren down into turn 1 if he's close enough, as they both make their way out of the final corner and head onto lap number 10. But meanwhile, up front, I can tell you, no change still. It is the case that everybody calm, as we do see there was a car going into the pits there, and that was Harikonen, I think, taking his drive-through penalty. So Harikonen has moved out the way there of Atkinson and Walker trying to come up through the field. So that's what you saw in the rear of your camera shot. But right now, Linden attacking as much as he can and trying to stay close as possible to Warren, who in turn is trying to catch up to Tony Hill ahead of him. But no change since the overtake from Faulkner on Hill, and we wait to see what can happen next. As meanwhile, I tell you up front right now, it is the case that Voss has been closed up by Field. He's been closed up over the last couple of laps, and these two have been running very similar lap times, albeit on the previous lap it was a 46.6 for Voss. Meanwhile for Field it was a 46.7. So the two drivers who were battling tooth and nail all the way through the race at Imola last time out are back to battling again, and it is the case that we are going to see this most likely for the rest of the race, unless one of them makes a mistake. Alternatively, a penalty comes in. But talking about penalties, we'll come on to the fact that Joris Apple has got a drive-through penalty in P6, and we'll tell you about how that's happened very shortly. But we can see right now, as we look back from Voss's car in P1, you can see the Intruder Racing Team driver has got huge pressure on him right now from the Swiss as the Frenchman, as they make their way through the left-hander at turn 12 and now go on to what is going to be lap number 11. And well, can the field find a way through it, or does he just want to sit there right now and put that mental pressure on Voss? Does he want to try and do what he did at Imola, just stay there, get as close as possible and try to force the driver head into mistake? Their lap times are inseparable, and you can see how Field is just trying to do these little moves just the inside, try and get his nose in there to find a way in, as he just looks out towards the inside into Montreal, not going for a move, not trying to go for a lunge, but just trying to throw that little surprise there, as Apple is into the pits for his drive-through penalty. And I can tell you, with regards to that, as we see he's making his way through right now, he's going to drop all the way down the order. So Del Comin up into P3, the Belgian driver right now in the Porsche. It's a Porsche top 3, and in fact top 4 with Lafloe in P4. But as we see the Delcom making his way up to Agostini here, and our race leaders very close together still. The reason why Apple got the penalty was the fact that there was avoidable contact, and that was car number 29 of Apple hitting the rear of car 21 on turn 9 on the opening lap. And to give you an idea who he hit in order to cause that, that was Jonathan Atkinson. So you remember we saw Atkinson go flying across turn 9? That was contact from Apple, who just got it wrong on the brakes and gave Atkinson a bump on the back, and that is what set things off. So that is why we're seeing Apple drop down the order right now, and he has just come back out in front, I should tell you. In fact, he's come out behind Atkinson, so Atkinson making his recovery, and Apple will now need to do the same. But focusing on the leaders right now, who we should be talking about more, we can see that Field, by comparison, in that P2 position, just staying there and trying to hunt down Voss right now, staying so close to CHF Motorsport driver. And I think, again, this is an exercise in patience for Field. We know he doesn't mind being this close to the back of Voss, and what he was saying last time at Imola in the post-race interview was the fact that he really enjoyed being behind Voss because he could use the high downforce setup on his car to stay there, and he could continue to put that pressure. And when he got out ahead, that's where he actually felt less comfortable because he didn't have a car to watch. And you can see here as they make their way into turn 1, he's looking for a little move on the inside, but Voss just covers him off enough. Field not getting the run, but you can see how he's trying to make these small micro moves, and now he's making those signals to try and say to Voss, am I coming at you or not? He's trying to get into Voss's head, but Mathis is not taking it to heart, and instead he's just running his racing lines right now, expecting that if Field's going to go for it, he's going to need to do a huge lunge, and Voss will be ready for it. He'll have one eye in the mirror, I'm sure, but he'll be expecting that Field right now is just trying to size him up and see whether he'll react early. But Voss staying calm right now as they're on lap number 12. We've still got 55 minutes to go, and it's all to play for between these two, as we see Voss going a little bit deep for Agostini, but nothing major there. It can be a line that you can take, and Voss making it work there. These two inseparable. But meanwhile, I can tell you that further back in P6, the battle for P6 now, rather than what was at the time P7, has opened up a little bit with the fact that Richard Jepp there coming out of Agostini, he's got Crew Camp all over the back of him, and then we've got a gap that's opened up to Coloridis in P8, and he's in a comfortable P8 right now, as we do see that Richard Jepp doing a good job of holding off Crew Camp. It's been like this for the best part of 6 laps now, and these two looking inseparable out on the circuit. And again, big questions to be asked, whether it's the case that Crew Camp is just pacing himself to the back of the Mercedes driver, or whether the two of them have got respective strengths and they're just simply not able to gain the advantage on one another. As I am hearing that no change up front for those of you wondering what's happening in the battle for the race lead, but we have had those 2 drive-through penalties so far commissioned onto our drivers, and we are waiting to see if there's any change, as we note here that Jepp and also Crew Camp coming through turn 9, and we see at the rear of your picture Coloridis there just taking it smooth through turn 9, and the McLaren driver not able to stay with the race leaders right now as they both make their way into Coram corner here. And as they go through the right-hander, it is the case that Jepp doing everything he can to hold on, as Crew Camp just stays there close behind, sizing him up lap after lap, looking for a potential win. As we hear Lefloic's been given a drive-through penalty, so more penalties still to come for the opening laps here, and we'll tell you why that happened very shortly. But will Crew Camp go for a move this time into turn 1? No, he won't. He's not close enough. And as we look back up towards our race leaders, I can tell you that Voss has opened that gap up by a 10th, but no major change. But coming on to Marvin here, the Frenchman Marvin Lefloic from Valkyrie Esport. Why he's got the penalty, you ask? The number 717 driver. That is due to the fact that he's got a drive-through penalty for hitting the rear of car 13 on what was, in fact, that was lap number 3 that he made the contact, so it wasn't on the opening lap. And who was that, you asked? That was Ben Walker. So you'll remember, ladies and gentlemen, we saw that Ben Walker had gone off, and we didn't understand why he'd gone off. Well, that was at turn 4 at Agostini when Ben went charging off, and it was because there was contact from Lefloic, which sent him off. So as a result, he's picked up the drive-through penalty, and Walker, of course, see that as some compensation. And speaking of the driver of Walker, he's got Linden ahead of him right now, and he's in P15. He's attacking the Aston Martin driver. He's trying to find a way into Agostini. He can't quite find it, but he's all over the back of Linden. And as we jump on board here with the McLaren driver, you could see just how close he is. But Linden getting the better run there out of Agostini, despite the fact Walker having the great rotation as they go through the left-hander of turn 5, heading up towards Oggie's corner once again of turn 6. It's the double right-hand combo, and will Walker be close enough? He gets very close as Linden goes a little bit deep there, but you can see the difference in the two cars. This McLaren being the better handling car by a significant margin, and you can see how Walker went for the early brake into turn 7 there in order to try and get the best possible power line out of the corner. He won't be able to catch up here versus Linden. The Aston Martin has the stronger straight line acceleration, and that's why he's got the gap open a little bit right now. But as they come down into 8 and 9, you'll see that Walker is going to close up very quickly here in towards the corners. As you know, he goes a little bit deep in that. I think the car got a bit unsettled there because he's lost a lot of time, and I think Walker almost had a near miss going through 8 there, just a little bit too high on the apex curve of 8. And as he makes his way through, he has got Atkinson, who would love to take that place off him. As I'm hearing that Field has got a position, he's managed to get the place on Voss. We didn't see that on camera, ladies and gentlemen, but he's got the place, and now he has taken the lead. And I think Voss has had an off somewhere, because if I look at my lap chart here, Voss in that previous lap was a 49.4, Field was a 48.3, so Voss has made a mistake. We didn't catch on camera, but he's dropped the position for the time being, but he will try and get his way back into the race, I'm sure. As well, it looks as though Lefloic versus Delcom here, no, it's not a versus, my apologies, we're getting a little glitch on our timing screens, but Lefloic in P3 as Delcom, I think, has made a mistake or something along those lines, because he was shown as P3 on our screens only moments ago. He's dropped down to P4, and the Belgian driver now, well, he'll be able to get P3 back very shortly, but there has been changes at the front. We weren't able to see them. But it is the case that Delcom right now is in that position. He's under pressure from Bartle as well as they make their way through a Williams corner once again. And Ross Bartle chasing after a potential top 3 finish if he plays his card right here. But he will still have Delcom in the way, despite the fact Lefloic has got that penalty. But you can see the straight line speed difference here. As you know, the Bentley's getting closer and closer. And as they go into the hand-in section once again, it will be the case that the Porsche starts to open that gap up a little bit more. Meanwhile, further back, we can see Crew Camp and also Jep. It's the case that they were like this a lap ago. They're like this still, but you can see how Crew Camp getting closer, and Jep now has to go defensive. He goes a bit too defensive into turn 9 and actually goes deep into turn 9, and as a result, it's now the case that Crew Camp is the closest he's ever been. He's up the backside of the Mercedes in that Bentley, almost putting his engine through the rear of the car as they make their way then through the right-hander of Coram. Can he be close enough to potentially go for the move as we hear Lefloic into the pits for his drive-through penalty? Can Crew Camp go for the move here into turn 1? He gets a poor run out of the final corner. I don't think he's going to be close enough, all things said and done, and as a result he has to stay back for the time being. No potential move here, but you can see that Crew Camp definitely putting that pressure on Jep. As this now becomes the battle for P5 as they make their way through up into Montreal. They're going, Crew Camp thinks about it, but he's not quite there. He's almost there, but meanwhile a little bit further down the order, I can tell you that in terms of from one Bentley driver to another, we've got Atkinson in P15, Walker just ahead of him, and Linden behind right now. Linden in P16, and we can see that Linden having dropped a little bit down the order there by the looks of things as he makes his way in towards turn 16. In fact, he's been passed by both Walker and also what appears to be Atkinson. So I think Linden has had an off somewhere on circuit due to the fact he's dropped all the way down. That last lap from Linden was a 49.5 compared to Atkinson and Walker's 47s. So as a result, Linden has definitely made a mistake, and that's how these two have got up the order, because we saw Walker only moments ago behind us. Walker gets a 15-second penalty. Now, what's that for? We will find out for you very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But looking a little bit further down the order, we can see Lambrecht here in P21, the Mercedes driver, the American driver from Get Speed. He's ahead of Harikonen right now, but Harikonen will be looking to make his way through as that Mercedes has definitely had better days at the office. You can see the front of that car looking very mangled indeed as our drivers make their way around the circuit once more, and we look up towards our leader and we can see Field at 1.7 seconds clear right now, the Swiss versus Voss, and pulling away. And even further back we see that Richard Jep right now making his way once again through a bomb hole and into Coram, and again Crew Camp right up his backside here as we jump on board with the Harim Racing Mercedes. And it is the case, they've been like this time and time again, and Crew Camp this time getting a better run out of Murray, but of course Jep getting a good run as well, and you can see how he's just able to pull away enough before the Bentley starts to get an advantage with the slipstream down the straight here. And it's no change once again, but these two inseparable, the Brit versus the South African, and I do think it'll be the case that these two are going to be in a race-long battle, and the strategy may be the element that tells the difference between the two of them as they go into Montreal corner once again for the 16th time of asking. And you can see how Richard is just able to hold bay for the time being as Crew Camp will continue to push as much as he possibly can here, but he doesn't want to overdo it, of course, but because we've still got 47 minutes of this race to go, and perhaps the strategy will be what makes it for Crew Camp. But we will wait and see, of course, as we look a little bit further down the order, and you can see Coloridis right now in P7. He has got Lefloic closing up to him. Remember, Lefloic had the drive-through penalty only earlier on in the race, and he's got over the back of him right now. He's got the Porsche all over the back of him as Coloridis as he makes his way out of Agostini. And in terms of, if you're wondering why there was the drive-through penalty, it was because of the fact, well, the 15 seconds, by the way, for Walker is for avoidable contact between himself and car 88 for contact at what was turn number 4. We saw that contact earlier on, so that's what set that off. But meanwhile, it is the case right now that Coloridis, he's got Lefloic over the back of him, and as they go charging down towards what is turns 8 and 9 here, I think the Porsche driver is going to be within striking distance come the end of this lap. He's looking very lethal as Lefloic, but to be fair, Coloridis will be reveling in the fact that he's up here, and he's been in the top 20 so far multiple times this season, but it's his first chance at a top 10 here, and they've got Velkoski behind, as we see that we've got the flashing of lights there of Lefloic trying to get in the mind there of Coloridis, trying to say to him, hey, look at me, don't look at the road ahead of you, but Coloridis having none of it, and the Greek driver Petros doing a very good job from Silk Cup Racing in just staying in that position right now as Lefloic stays behind him for the time being, as we see in the rear view camera shot, Velkoski almost knocking the back of Lefloic, going too deep into the final corner there, and I think Lefloic may have seen that in the rear of his picture and thought to himself, oh goodness me, that is something I didn't want to have happen in the back, and he's going to be breathing a sigh of relief that he wasn't rear-ended by the Porsche chasing after him, because that would have given Coloridis the run for his life. But you can see as they make their way out of turn 1, he's getting closer and closer to Lefloic. Will he be able to go for the move this time? No, he's waiting. I think he's looking to do it Agostini. He's been looking stronger into turn number 4 compared to Coloridis by a significant margin, as we jump on board here with the Porsche driver, and that gap still at 0.4 seconds as they make their way through the left-hander here. And I can tell you that as it currently stands, Lefloic looking at a very strong hit and looking on course to potentially chase down a top 5 result, but to do so he's got to get past the McLaren in front of him as he closes up very rapidly there under braking into turn 4. You can see the difference in confidence on the brakes, but also Lefloic not able then to get on the powers quickly because he gets caught up behind the back of the McLaren as they rotate through the corner. Now as they go through Oggies in towards Williams, so through turn 6 here you can see the Lefloic going a little bit deep there, and in fact perhaps just overstepping it now as he makes his way through Williams, and the McLaren able to keep the gap open, but you can see how Lefloic gets the better run out the corner initially, but then Coloridis can just get the power down early initially, and as they now start to make their way down towards turn 8, this is where he starts to catch up in that slipstream, but he's going to stay on the racing line as the track temperature has dropped by a degree to 21 degrees centigrade, but this is not going to affect the tyres right now. It may affect the tyres come the second half of the race after the pit stop, because tyre temperatures will take just a little bit longer to bring up, and the PSIs will need to be right, as we see Coloridis going deep there through bomb hole, but it doesn't cost him too much time as we now jump back to the exterior cameras here, and they are inseparable in this battle for P7, as meanwhile up front I can tell you that Field still leading. He's opened the gap up to 3 seconds. He is on course right now to hold on to the race lead by a good margin. As you see at the rear of your camera shot, we've got Mathis Voss there in P2, and then a little way back we've got Delcom in P3, in quite a quiet P3 with Ross Bartle behind him in P4. Meanwhile Crew Camp has got past Richard Jepp, so he's done it down the run towards turn number 1. It was coming out of Murray's corner, and you can see that Jepp has got the move done, and he's up into P5 is Crew Camp Ryan. He's got past Jepp, and it's over there, but meanwhile behind you can see that Coloridis versus Lefloic, we were seeing this getting closer and closer, and he almost had it there. Did Lefloic coming through turn number 2, but he had the inside line and wasn't able to get the power, but Coloridis under a huge amount of pressure here as they go down to Agostini. Will he defend to the inside, or will Lefloic come out the last minute? He comes out the last minute. Oh goodness me, and he has to take to the curve there. I think Lefloic was just caught out of the fact that Coloridis turned the steering wheel briefly and he had to take evasive action. He's dropped down to P9, and I think the Frenchman might be saying a few words under his helmet there, but he hasn't lost the car completely. He's only dropped 1 place, and he's only now 4 tenths off of Velkoski, who is down in that P8 position. He's got up to that P8 position as the German from Back to Motion Racing, and he's now 2 seconds off of Coloridis. Coloridis being built a lifeline there for the time being, but we'll wait and see how quickly Velkoski and Lefloic can settle things down and then go charging after the McLaren driver, as Loisinger looks on behind these guys, of course, and he is in P10 right now as the camera pans all the way around, going all the way around the houses. And the Swiss driver here holding on to that P10 position for the time being, as we see up ahead of them Velkoski and Lefloic racing nose to tail here. And as we look back from the Porsche driver here, you can see just how close the pair of them are as they make their way then through Coriam Corner once again. And I think Lefloic is going to be looking for a move in very short order. He's going to be sieving. You can see how close he gets into Murray's, and as a result of that, it's definitely the case that he is looking the faster driver. As the pit window opens and he immediately responds here. So Lefloic going for the the undercut on what is Velkoski, and Koloridis recognising it's his opportunity. What about further behind? Well, I can tell you that Faulkner not deciding to pit. The Irishman now up into P10 out on track. But of course, the strategy needs to play its course. And behind him, he has got Tardioli as a spacer from Atkinson and Walker. But remember, Walker does have that 15-second time penalty to be applied either in the pits when he makes his pit stop, alternatively at the end of the race. And I assume that Walker's going to burn it in the pits. That's where our drivers normally do it if they get it before the pit stop rather than staying out there. As we hear from Lega 1290, who is supported Jonathan Atkinson, who is in P12 as it currently stands, the OTL racing driver. You can see him on camera right now making his way through turn number 3. Doing a good job is the Bentley driver right now of recovering what was looking a good race, but it all went wrong on the opening laps due to a collision which was not his fault. He was sent flying off the circuit at turn 9, and he is making a recovery drive here. He's got Ben Walker behind him, but remembering that Walker has that penalty, so Atkinson is clear of Walker once the pit stops occur. But it is the case that Atkinson trying to chase down that top 10 finish. He was on course definitely for a chance at a top 5 here, but he's going for the top 10 now, and he is almost there. Behind these guys, of course, you've got Tony Hill right now in that P14 position. The British driver here, he's got Linden behind him. Linden in that P15 chasing after the Ferrari driver, and we'll see here as they make their way down the Bentley straight just the difference in straight line performance, where the Ferrari, as we're hearing that Field has picked up a 10-second penalty. Now, how has this happened? We're going to find out very shortly for you folks, but it is all happening once again, and now our race leader has a 10-second time penalty, and this is a shock to the senses, I can tell you, but we'll find out shortly. As you can see Linden there getting a full attack out of turn number 9, and as he goes through Bombhole and up into Coram here, it is the case that Linden looking at a very strong and perhaps trying to look for the move here on the Ferrari and next lap around. As we jump on board with Tobias here, and you can see on the offensive as the Swede makes his way through turn 12, and Hill going a little bit deep into the corner, but getting a very nice exit. In fact, as Velkoski comes into the pits, we do have a number of drivers in the pits right now, including Jep, and we've also got Bartle in there. So how will they all come out, and where will this affect the drivers battling right now? Well, you're riding on board with our driver who's now up to P11 out on circuit. As we see up ahead of them, you've got Atkinson, and you've also got Saridis ahead and Lambrecht as well, and they are backmarkers with blue flags, and they're battling, the two of them. They are battling in towards the corner. You can see that Lambrecht there in that battle with Saridis, and we see flashlights of Hill here, and I think Linden, we think to himself, right, this is the opportunity. Hill's boxed in. I need to use this to my advantage, as we see the battle for what is P23 playing out ahead, as Saridis is now behind these two, and it is the case that Saridis getting past there by Lambrecht into Montreal, and it's Linden now who needs to capitalise on Hill being boxed in behind Saridis. This is the way they use back markers, and they can do it very effectively indeed, but will it be a chance for Linden to get the place of Hill as they make the way then? And you can see went a little bit sideways there coming out of what was turn number 5, and as they make the way through 6, we have got Apple who's also behind them here. Remembering that Apple earlier on had that drive-through penalty after being up in P6, and we've got the Aston Martin trying to charge past another Aston Martin as they both make their way out of Williams here, and it really is a case that we are seeing a lot of fast drivers with some reckless decisions earlier in the race, it could be argued, find themselves further down the order than they desired to be, and now they've got to try and find their way through the midfield drivers who've got good pace and good consistency and do not want to give up this opportunity of a strong race result, a strong race finish, as we see that Linden all over the back of Hill once again. This is the closest battle out of the circuit right now, the battle for P10, as we see that Hill looks to the outside here as Linden gets his nose up on the inside. He's going to go around Coram. Will he be able to secure the move as they go into the left-hander of Murray's? It is the case. He's got it done, and I think Hill was just caught out there as Linden just had a little bit more of a run into the inside of Coram, but Hill jumps into the pits, as does Apple here. So Linden, as a result, will now be undercut effectively by these two as they're both in the pit lane. And for Linden, he's got to think about, right, I've got 5 minutes to go in this pit window. I need to make the next 2 laps count if I'm going to go all the way to the end of the pit window, because otherwise I'm going to end up in the same battle that I've just finished. So Tobias will be thinking about that in his head right now. But meanwhile, further up front, we can see that Field with a 10-second penalty. Well, how did he get that is probably your big question. Well, he got the penalty, the number 420 driver, for contact with Voss on what was a lap number 13, and that was at turn 9 to take the position. So that's why Voss lost the position. It was contact between the two of them that he didn't get to see, but our stewards have caught it. So as a result, he's got that 10-second time penalty, which led to the pass, and I don't think it may have been intentional, but the stewards definitely been harsh on it, and as a result, now he's got to either pull out a massive gap or do the overtake once again in the second stint. And I think that Field will look to do it in the second stint here. He'll feel he's got the confidence, and he would love to win win out on circuit rather than just pulling a gap. That I'm sure in Field's mind right now. Does Voss come into the pits at the end of this lap? He decides to come in. So the Frenchman reacting here and going for the undercut pit stop as there's 5 minutes of that pit window remaining, and we see Romain Delcom, the Belgian driver from Valkyrie Esport, who was in P3 at the time, in a comfortable P3 right now, deciding to stay out there. And look who's in P4 right now, the Silk Cut driver of Petros Koloridis. Of course, he's yet to take a pit stop, but it is the case that by going long in the McLaren, he is doing a solid job, and this is definitely looking like a good performance for a top 10 finish when all is said and done based on his current rate of running. As we are waiting to see, he comes into the pits here, and we see a long concertina effect of cars, and we can see that Ben Walker is at the head of that pack. Does anybody else react? We can see Loisinger coming into the pits here, Atkinson staying out as well, the British driver going for at least one more lap here, and definitely the recovery drivers on as Lambrecht, and we can see Seridis behind them. They were battling only laps ago, but right now Atkinson up into that P4 out on circuit. We suspect that's around a P11 when he comes out of the pits once he's taken his mandatory pit stop, and it's the same for Walker, except Walker has to take that 15-second time penalty either at the end of the race or in the pits. He'll do it in the pits most likely. So Atkinson right now is pretty much there to securing the return to the top 10, but how much more can he do? As I can tell you right now, now in P18, just coming out of the pits as it currently stands, indeed on his outlap right now, so he's actually coming up down towards what is turn number 9 right now. It is Hill ahead of Apple, so he's got himself back out ahead of the Aston Martin driver here, but the big question for Hill is, will he be able to jump Linden, who's in the pits right now? So remember that Linden just got ahead of Hill going through Coram here. We'll move up the inside, which Hill wasn't expecting, but will it be the case that Linden comes out ahead of these guys? Does he come out amongst them, or does he come out behind them and have to do it all again? We'll wait and find out very shortly, as we see Hill right now making his way down towards the start finish line here, and meanwhile Linden is still in the pits. Oh, he's come out the pits, and in fact he's come out well ahead here, so it's worked out for Linden by simply going along and putting in those laps. He does have our race leader coming through, and you have to be aware of that, but Tony Hill meanwhile has now got to deal with Apple, and he's down in P17, so Linden jumping the pair of them through the strategy after the overtake. So it's worked out very nicely for the Swede. He's got a nice gap there of approximately 3 seconds from them, and he just now needs to get those tyres up to temperature, keep that gap at least 2.5 seconds, and he'll be golden. But will Hill or Apple be able to come back at him? That'll be the big question. Apple is the fastest out of the three of them, of course, having qualified much further out the grid and being out of position with the drive-through penalty, but will Hill let Apple through, or will he fight for P17? We will wait and see, as meanwhile Gian Petro has come out of the pits down in P22 after that disastrous start, and we can see that he's continuing his way. We've still got 27 drivers running. Dave Jr., the last of our drivers, currently sat in the pits. I think it's more of a practice drive right now for Junior, with the fact he's been in the pits a number of times, having some difficulties with the car. And Pastores is the last of our runners from the AF course team, the Swiss driver right now, who's not in the pits or made multiple visits to the pits. So we've technically got 26 running, but we've also got Junior there, who we have seen time and time again, so he is effectively our 27th runner as it stands. We've only had one proper retirement so far, and that happened right at the start of the race. But meanwhile, our race leader, with the pit window only 2 minutes to remain, we can see that Field has been past Linden here, but he has got that 10-second penalty, and then it's Atkinson down in P2 right now, the British driver here. Voss meanwhile a further 19 seconds behind Atkinson, but remember Atkinson has yet to pit, and he will have to pit at the end of this lap. He will not be permitted to do another lap. That'll be a disqualification if he does not take his pit stop at the end of this lap, or at least a massive penalty being applied. But it has been a major race so far, as we can see in the YouTube chat from the CC Trade Centre, who's cheering on Wilcox. And let's talk a little bit about Jason Wilcox. We can see he's in the pits right now. He's coming out the pits. He was making his way a little bit out the order, the Metallica Racing driver in that P16 position as it stands. I think he's got Joris Apple coming through, as Hill is a bit further out. I think Apple's actually had an off somewhere, because he's dropped quite a way off of Hill. So as a result, Wilcox in P17 after the pit stop. So Jason Wilcox actually having quite a solid race here, and definitely on course for some good points if he can keep it up. And indeed, if he can close up to the back of Apple and Hill, he could be on for a top 15 come the end of this one if he plays his cards right. He's made his pit stop, and our race leader is into the pits. I can tell you that he's come into the pits right now, has Field, and remember he has got that 10-second time penalty for the move on Voss, so he is taking his penalty right now. Where is Voss, you may ask? Well, he's just coming through Coram corner right now, so we suspect this will be the opportunity to Voss to gain the lead back again. We will let you know. We're going to see where Voss comes out in relation to Field here as he makes his way across the timing line very shortly to start what is lap number 24. He comes across right now, and you can see he is definitely clear, and Field is only just coming out the pits right now, so in fact Field has not lost too much there, albeit I think that's Ross Bartle coming charging through here, and Bartle in fact just missing out on getting out ahead of Field here, and how that would have been drama for Field if he'd had the Bentley of Ross Bartle ahead of him. I think Bartle's probably biting between his teeth right now and going, damn, I wish I could have got it, but he's going to try and go for it. I think Bartle recognises this is his chance now or never to get himself in the way of Field and potentially sneak a P3 as the pit window closes and everyone is making or has completed their pit stops. Atkinson in the pits right now, he's just come back out, and in fact Atkinson, to give you an idea ladies and gentlemen, if we see Bartle go for a move here into Agostini or not, he does not go for a move, he stays behind Field, but I can tell you that after the pit stops here, Atkinson up into P8, so Atkinson has made the recovery into the top 10, he is now in P8, he goes a little bit deep into turn 2, but he's on cold tyres, that's understandable, he keeps it together, and Tardioli behind him, Velkoski behind them, and you can see that Loising in the rear of your picture, but Atkinson jumping his way back up the field and is potentially on course to get the P7. He's only got 4 seconds of a gap to Koloridis in P7. And who is Koloridis, you ask? Well, of course, he is the Silk Cut racing driver from Greece in the McLaren, who's worked the strategy to get into that P7 position and done some very consistent defensive driving. And he's got Atkinson now, who will try to chase after him. 4 second gap between the two of them. Who's going to be in that P7 position by the end of it? We'll have to wait and see. But after the pit stops, and with 30 minutes of this race to go, or just over, let's give you a quick recap of how things currently stand. It is the case that at the moment your race leader is Mathis Voss, who was leading at the start. And he was being closed down by Yves Fild, but Yves Fild made a move, as we're hearing, but there was contact between the two of them, which led to Yves being able to make the pass. The stewards have frowned upon that and gave Field a 10-second time penalty, which he served in the pits. So as a result, Voss has regained the lead. He has the best part of what is a limited gap between himself and Delcomen, who's in P2. Romain Delcomen here in P2, as the camera flips around to the Belgian. You can see he's in that P2 position. The Porsche, we've got a Porsche top 3 here, because then it is Field, who is a further 3.6 seconds back. The Swiss driver from CHF Motorsport right now, charging after the Valkyrie Esport driver. However, behind Field, we have got the grumpy monkey machine of Ross Bartle making his way right now through what is the Palmer corner here, chasing after Field. They charge all the way down towards turn number 4, down towards Agostini, and Bartle has had a solid race and really been the one to have no instance in the race or any drama and just keep it together all the way through. And it's really working out for Bartle right now, as the fact that he hasn't got too long to go in terms of 30 minutes remaining, and even if he just ends up coming home in what is that P4 position, I think he'll be very pleased with that, as we get a brief glitch on our timing screens which says that Bartle's up into P3 when he's definitely not. He's in P4 right now, but that happens every so often. And meanwhile, we can see that we have got Crew Camp in P5, so the two grumpy monkeys running P4 and P5. Crew Camp the best part of 16 seconds down on Bartle, and then we've got Lee Floic down in P6, having had a drive-through penalty for an instant earlier in the race. So the Frenchman from Valkyrie Esport having to hold his ground right now and try and hunt down Crew Camp, but he's got to find a way past the bulky Bentley in front of him, the nimble Porsche. And indeed, it has been a case that once again the Porsches have been the faster cars around this circuit, but the likes of the Bentleys and the Ferraris and the Mercedes have been the cars that have been difficult to pass down the straights. It's all been in the corners. And then further down, we've got in P7 Koloridis here, who you'll see making his way down the Bentley straight when our cameraman spins the camera around. And then we've got Atkinson just behind him, hunting him down. The gap is now 3.3 seconds. Atkinson on the previous lap having taken out of him the best part of about half a tenth, and it will continue. We can see that Atkinson there closing him down right now, but Koloridis had a very solid race. No major incidents, just gained places through the mistakes and instance of other drivers and holding off the pack behind him. Then we've got Atkinson down in what is P8. And he is having to make that recovery drive, of course, with the incident on lap number 1 where he was sent flying off the circuit at turn number 9, and he's up into that P8 position chasing down P7. And it's a 3.5 second gap back to Nicolas Tardioli, the Frenchman from Valkyrie Esport in the Ferrari, who again, a driver who started towards the rear of the field, or at least in the lower portion of the field, but has made a brilliant drive up to P9 and is continuing to press on. But he does have a charging pack of cars behind him, and the first of them is Velkoski, and Velkoski only 1 second back right now, and in the Porsche would love to take that P9 off of Tardioli. It's his best opportunity at a top 10, and he would love to capitalise on it. But behind him, of course, we've got the BMW M6 of Adrian Leusinger, the Swiss driver here, chasing after him. And it's been a quiet race for Leusinger. He's just been picking up places and using the straight line speed of the BMW, as was his game plan, to try and gain as many places off of everyone as he possibly could, as they make their way now down towards Agostini. But behind him, he's got Ethan Faulkner, and the Irishman, after having that disastrous open half of the race, is having to make a recovery drive after recovery drive. He's up into P12, and can the distinct GG driver here get himself up into that top 10? He's got a number of cars he can siphon his way through. Will he have enough time and pace to do it? It's the same story of Ben Walker having been sent down the order, the distinct GG driver, for the incidents that he's been involved in, and particularly drive-through penalty applied to him. But he's in P13 right now, the number 13 car, the name matching his position, and can he get that McLaren into the top 10? As Tobias Linden, of course, with the strategy call of going along after passing Hill, has kept him ahead of Hill and Apple having had that run off there. It is the case that Tobias in P14 ahead of Hill, who's making his way right now in towards Williams and out Williams corner. He's got Apple behind him in P16. That is our top 16 as summarised right now, as we see in the YouTube chat that Classic Car Crazy is cheering on Yves Fild, saying that he can come back from the penalty. We'll wait to see, of course, if he's able to do it, but if anybody can, it will be our P3 man, who is charging right now, and he's only the best part of 3 seconds off of Delcom, who's in P2, and a further 2.5 seconds off our race leader as he gets past the traffic there of Mills. That's Gary Mills as they make their way through the corner. Sorry, Gareth Mills, I should say, enunciating my words quickly and better on the microphone. As we see, Gareth Mills gets it very wrong at Agostini, and unfortunately out of the way. That could have been near fatal for Ross Bartle, who was on the lap ahead of him, as we see the GM Racing driver moving out the way there and then returning to the circuit as safely as he possibly can. But it's been a difficult one for Mills, but all part of the learning experience, and again, it's good to see him continue out on circuit as they continue to make their way around. And I should point out that Jason Wilcox right now in a quiet P17 as it currently stands, and he's 7.2 seconds down on Apple in P16, and he's got a good gap of 9 seconds to Brandon Warren in P18. So I think Wilcox will be looking to bring home this P17 right now. We've got then, well, in fact, it is Ingo. My apologies, it's not Ingo Horman. Ingo Horman's had to retire the car, so we have had the retirement of Ingo Horman for one reason or another. We're not sure what's happened there, but we do have Brandon Warren in P18 right now, running the 233 Ferrari there, and he's got Moreira, the Portuguese, just behind him. Helder Moreira, who's chasing after him in the M2 competition at Racing Machine there, as he tries to catch up to the back of Brandon Warren. They are only separated by 1 second, and then last in our top 20, it is Kevin Harikonen, who said it was going to be a difficult one today, and he said that the Porsches were going to run away with it, and it has not been a strong race for the Intruder Racing Team driver. And I think it's going to be one to learn from today. But that's how it currently stands. We still have remaining running out on circuit approximately 24 drives as it currently stands. We started with 28, of course, a reduced grid for this one. A lot of drivers deciding not to participate in tonight's race, as is understandable. Of course, our drivers get the ability to withdraw from multiple races, 3 races in total. But still, looking back to the here and now and the battling, our race leader of Voss, he's got a 1.6 second lead to Delcom, who's gradually reeling that lead down. Last lap, Voss a 46.4, and meanwhile, Romain Delcom, by comparison, you can see on the screen right now, the Belgian, a 46.1. It was his fastest lap of the race. So as a result, Delcom looking to try and get the win, the Belgian here. He's chasing it down, but we will wait and see, of course, whether he's able to do it. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Lefloic's still holding on to that P5. Crew Camp was closing up to him only a couple of laps ago, but he's now 1.3 seconds down. Is the Bentley driver, Lefloic, trying to open that gap up to give himself some security. Meanwhile, Atkinson, well, he has got past Coloridis. We didn't see that happen out on circuit. Coloridis has been passed, and I suspect that has been up into Montreal on this lap. So that has happened, and Atkinson is up into P7, and now he just needs to break away from the McLaren driver. And Petros here having dropped down a position. I don't think he'll be complaining too much. The next driver to potentially come after him will be Tardioli, but he has got the best part of a 4.5 second gap to Tardioli, and he has got 24 minutes to manage that gap. And the two drivers, to give you an idea, on the last lap, Coloridis was a 47.0, meanwhile Tardioli a 47.5. So if he can keep the gap as it is and keep those laps going, Coloridis, I think, will feel safe to bring home that P8 right now. As we look a little bit further back, and I can see that Faulkner in that P10 position, the Irishman, he has got Loisinger trying to chase after him. You can see how much that BMW closed up down the straight. He's already stripped out 4 attempts before the braking zone into turn 8. But, oh, and that is a car off there. That looks to be Pastorius, who's off the circuit, who's going to have to try and rejoin as he makes his way into the corner. There's flashing lights there as he backs out of it completely. But I think Loisinger here has been caught up behind the Ferrari a little bit there. And as a result, that gap has opened up slightly. So that's a bit unfortunate for Loisinger. Pastorius getting in the way, but then trying to return as safe as he can. But the Dream Pace Racing BMW there has lost the time to Faulkner, and he was gaining at quite a rate there, and now will have to do it all again. Of course, he will have the straights on which to do it. As we see behind, we do have Walker, who is only now the best part of what is approximately, at the end of the day, going to be 3.6 seconds down on Loising here as they make their way through turn number 1. Does Walker here, and he is definitely trying to close down the BMW in the closing stages. I reckon he may be within striking distance within probably the last 5 minutes based on the rate. They're very close on lap times, however, and this is going to be a very nip and tuck whether it is going to happen or not. But meanwhile, looking around the order, I can tell you that the closest battle out on circuit really is the battle for what is... It is at the moment, it's the battle for that P10 position, Faulkner versus Loisinger. Everybody else has spaced out a little bit, although we have got Lefloic and also Atkinson relatively close to one another, and that's a seconds gap, and we can see Lefloic here and Atkinson just behind him. In fact, I think Lefloic's had an off somewhere because his last lap was a 57.9. So as a result, Lefloic, who was actually quite close to crew camp, he's fallen all the way back to Atkinson and Coloridis here, so the Bentley and the McLaren may have an opportunity to come through, as we hear that Lega is very happy to see that Atkinson is making his way up the order there in the Twitch chat. It's great to see, of course, people cheering on one another as they make their way through the corners here and charging all the way down once again as they make their way in towards turn number 11 through Coram Corner. And it is the case that right now Lefloic really under some pressure from Atkinson, and we jump on board with Atkinson here as he comes to the end of this lap and goes on to lap number 30. And the big question for Atkinson, of course, at this point is what can he do to potentially close that gap down? Well, he'll know now as he goes a little bit deep into one but gets the car collected together that Lefloic has already made one major mistake, and he'll want to be there. He'll want to keep trying to apply that pressure, and I think if he can get himself within, say, 6 tenths and then start to close that down naturally on the straights, that could be where he can apply the pressure to Lefloic and get him into a difficult position. But we will wait and see, of course, as they both go through the left-hander here of Palmer and now head down towards Agostini once again. And it is the case that Atkinson not able to keep up as easily through the handling section as we would expect, the Porsche having the handling characteristic advantage over the Bentley. But once they get into those major acceleration zones, we should see things equalise more in favour of Atkinson in the Bentley as he makes his way now in towards turn number 5 here and then heading down towards Oggins Corner once again. It's a second gap between them, and you can see it's not opening as much as perhaps Lefloic would like it to. Although it is slowly opening up here, and through the right hander they go, the pair of them here, and now they have got the run all the way down the Bentley straight to turn number 8, and this is where Atkinson will look to close up as much as he possibly can. He needs to get the best possible runs out of these straights here as the camera pans round here down the Bentley straight in towards turn number 8, and it is one of those situations where Lefloic is living on time right now that he has to create for himself, and he's doing everything he can, surely throwing the kitchen sink and even more in order to hold on is the Valkyrie Esports driver, and we will wait and see whether there is a change between the two of them. But meanwhile, I can tell you that up front, Voss right now is being pressured very heavily from Delcom, so Delcom has really come on in the last couple of laps, and the gap between these two is now down to only half a second, if that, and you can see how Voss, he's only got a 0.3 of a second gap on Delcom, as Field is 3.1 seconds behind. So as a result, it's Voss once again. It's much like Imola, but he's got a different driver on the attack this time behind him, with only 20 minutes to go here, and we'll stay with this for the time being. But we can see just at the fact that Voss under that pressure, and meanwhile Delcom by comparison is holding on to that P2 right now. I think he'll feel the Belgian that he's got an advantage here. Perhaps he can find some magic in order to close this up, but we will wait and see, of course, in due time. But it definitely looks as though Voss is just starting to feel a bit of pressure towards the end of the race. Perhaps it's nerves, perhaps it's tyres, or perhaps the car's just starting to go away from him here. We do know that the Porsche can be a very tricky car in the remainder of, say, a 75-minute race. In that final 15 minutes, it can be very difficult to drive. The car just starts to go away from the driver, and we can see how Delcom is all over the back of the field, is only 2.4 seconds behind, and is closing. So Voss right now, I think what he'll be hoping is he can back Delcom up to Voss, not up to Voss, to Field, and as a result, Field will battle with Delcom for P2, and Voss can just hold on and pull away a little bit and give himself some breathing room. But right now, as we jump on board with our P2 driver, you can see how close he is getting to the back of our race leader, and the Valkyrie Esports driver here would love a chance to take the win off the Intruder Racing Team driver, but will he be able to do it? He looks to the inside into turn number 1. There's no place there for him to go. He's just trying to feint the move. move right now as they make their way down towards turn number 2. Will he be able to find a way in on the inside? No, it's not the case. In fact, he's squeezed a little bit to the outside there, but he looks at the cutback, but Voss blocks it, and there's a tiny bit of contact from the back of Delcom onto Voss. He flashes his lights there, I think trying to get into Voss's head, trying to say to him effectively, I'm here, you're gonna have to deal with me now, whether you like it or not. But you could definitely see how Voss under huge pressure right now to hold on to this position as they make their way into Agostini, and they've got 18 minutes to go, and how can he hold on? That is the big question. As meanwhile, I can tell you that Atkinson versus Lafloe, the battle for P6, it's closed up once again. It's down to 3/10 of a second. Will we see a potential move here from Atkinson into Montreal? We don't see it, and instead he stays behind for the time, but we'll keep an eye on that one, folks. But meanwhile, in the battle for P2, I can tell you that Delcom is getting closer and closer, and Field is only now 1 second off the back of this battle. We're going to have a three-way fight for the race win come the end of it. And this is fantastic to see. And it should also be pointed out, ladies and gentlemen, that Voss, according to Governor ITR here in the Twitch chat, is battling with his old team. So he used to be part of Valkyrie Esports, as we understand it, and now he's battling with his old team, his old teammates as well. So we have got our top three Porsches, all dominant by looks of things in terms of pace, but they're going to battle to the very end. And this is what you love to see. With 17 minutes to go, we're going to have these Porsches go all the distance. And which one of them is going to be on the top step by the end of it? Or will any of them be on the podium? Will there be something that takes them all out? We hope not, of course, but it could always happen, and we can have the drama all the way to the end, and we'll bring it to you as we see there that Voss getting a slightly poor run out of the final corner, just going a tiny bit wide, but it doesn't cost him too much time. He holds to the centre of the road into turn 1. Delcom looks to the inside. There's no space for him to do it, but he will have the better flow line through turn 1 and up into Montreal corner. But Field is all over the back of him now, and he looks to the inside, does Field. He can't find a way through, and meanwhile we jump on with Voss and look back from his car, and you can see just how close the pack is behind him here. It is the case that if it's going to go on like this, one of them is going to have to crack, and Voss will be hoping that it's Delcom who cracks and holds up Field as a result here. He needs Delcom to battle with Field in order to be able to hold on and give himself some respite right now, as we see Delcom looks for a little move, he goes a bit deep, and this gives Field the opportunity to close up on the inside. Can he find a way in? Field cannot. He backs out of it and recognises the fact that Delcom just came in a little too hot and gives him the opportunity to go again here, but it gives Voss just a small bit of breathing room here, as we see that Field goes a little bit deep into Oggies, and now as they make their way around and head up towards Williams corner here, we can see that Field getting closer and closer to the back of the pair of them. As we jump on board here with a Porsche driver, you're running on board with the Swiss right now, who would love to make it 3 races back to back in terms of wins. He'll have been on the podium after every race if he finishes P3 right now, and that'll be a very consistent record and still help him pull his lead in the championship. But it is the case that Field is really trying to find a way through. He's got 15 minutes. He doesn't need to rush this. He's the fastest of the 3 of them at this point in the race. We have seen that based on the statistics of the timing sheets. He just needs to wait for a prime opportunity as they all make their way through Coram and up into Murray corner for the 33rd time of asking. He takes a wide line, does Field. He tries to get the best possible launch line, but you can see he goes a little bit wide off the corner as a result. And as they make their way down the straight here once again, we see that Voss pulling onto the racing line this time, not going defensive initially, but now he weaves back into the middle here. He can make one move, of course. He's allowed to make one lane change as they go into the right-hander of turn 1. He stays there to the inside initially, but then sweeps it into the middle of the corner, and as he makes his way down towards Montreal, you can see how Field is on the attack here versus Delcom. Delcom says, no, Field, you're going to have to go all the way around the outside if you want it. So Field backs out for the time being, but he's almost as if he's reminding Delcom, is Field, that if he can't get the move done with the next couple of laps, he will be there and he'll take the position off of him. As they all make their way, I can also tell you that the Floyd is still ahead of Atkinson in the battle for P6 at this time. We will let you know about that if anything should change right now, but no change at the moment as we see that Voss continued to make his way around here ahead of these two, and Field, meanwhile, just hanging in there, and Lafloy is still ahead of Atkinson by the best part of a couple of tenths. As we see that Delcom's gone wide out of turn number 5, he goes defensive into 6, and is there going to be enough room for the pair of them? There is initially, but Field cannot find a way around the outside as they go through Williams, and this is what Voss needs. He needs these two to fight. He'll pull away as we see that the gap between the two of them has now opened up to 1 second, and Field is the closest he's ever been here as they go down the Bentley straight. Will he go for the move into turn 8? He's going to be brave. He's looking to the inside, into the left-hander they go, but Delcom stays there on the outside and he nails it on the brakes, and he holds on to P2 for now, but Field goes round the outside. He gets the acceleration out the corner. Delcom locked up the brakes, and as a result, that is the move for P2 by Field. Fild, and now he's got a 1.3 second gap to close down over the next 13.5 minutes to the race leader. But will Delcom find a way back? That will be the big question. Or will he now wait and do what Field was doing only moments ago and wait behind Field and wait for him to battle with Voss? And that will be the opportunity for Delcom to come back into the race win as they come down towards lap number 35. It is our top three battling, and look in the rear of your picture, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is, Ross Bartle, the Bentley driver. He's only 5 seconds down this battle for the win right now. Could we see the Grumpy Monkey Bentley get involved here? Could we see the South African go for something, as we see that behind Field is having to defend versus Delcom? So Delcom is putting that pressure on, and this means that Voss has opened the gap up to 2 seconds. Voss is running away right now, and as a result, if these two don't calm it down, Voss, if he doesn't make a mistake, could hold on for the time being. As we see they go down in towards Agostini corner, no change so far. And I can tell you, meanwhile, in the battle for P6, you're just about to see Marvin Lefloy, the Frenchman. He's still holding off the Bentley of Atkinson as Atkinson looks at a move. He doesn't quite commit to it. He's almost there to make the move. You can see it's palpable. It's on the tip of his tongue. He wants to send it, but he can't quite get close enough to risk going for the move, and he won't want to at this point. Atkinson's had to make a huge recovery effort to get up to here, and he won't want to throw it away now as they make their way down towards Agostini. Will there be a move from Atkinson? He's not close enough, I don't think, here, but we will wait and see what happens a bit later on, as meanwhile we can see Delcom has fallen back now just a little bit to take the pressure off of Field, and this is Field's opportunity to close up Voss. He needs Voss now to be closed up by Field, and for Field to go on the offensive versus the race leader here, because Bartle is only 5 seconds behind, and if Delcom continues to try and fight Field, then surely it becomes a battle for P2, not a battle for the race win, and Voss would love to see that, but of course Field and Delcom would not love to see that, and that is the big trade-off here in terms of these three drivers. They've all got to try and play their own race. They've got to be smart about it, and definitely Field is pulling away from Delcom only slightly, very gradually right now, but you can see that he is reeling in Voss. Last lap, a 46.9 from Field, Voss a 47.2, so Field took 3 tenths out of our race leader. He definitely is the man with the cards up his sleeve right now. He's got an ace in his hand and he's going to play it, and that is his late race pace. Field is coming alive and he's looking to get back onto that top step after being deprived of being out there because of the 10-second time penalty for the contact between himself and Voss earlier on in the race. He's going once again and he's going to try and get the win and earn it out on circuit, and you love to see it. Meanwhile, behind, I can tell you that Crew Camp has got past, well no, he's not past Lefloy, he was already ahead of Lefloy, I should say, but meanwhile in the battle for P6, Atkinson is still there. He's so close to the back of Lefloy that it's so palpable, but you can see he's having to pull out every time. I'm wondering if Atkinson's got tyre temperature or brake temperature problems running in the dirty air of that Porsche, because he keeps making that little pull out there no matter how close he is, and he is falling further back, and perhaps there is an issue with the temperatures on that Bentley. Perhaps he's starting to hit the limit there and just having to cool the car down a little bit, and Lefloy is being given a bit of breathing space, no pun intended, as they make their way down towards Agostini. But Crew Camp is only 5 seconds up the road here, and as we come back to our race leader, we see that Voss under that pressure now from Field. Field is only 2 tenths back, and Delcom is only a further second back as they go through turn number 9 here, and now they come through bomb hole corner once again, and you can see there's no change so far. There is that composure. There's 10 minutes to go, and none of them are giving up right now. They continue around the circuit, and Voss is trying to hold on every which way, and will he be able to do it? That is the big question. That's the finality with 10 minutes to go. Can he bring home a win this time, or will Field find a way of depriving him again for the 4th time of asking? As you can see now that Voss is doing everything. He started on the inside, he pulls to the race line to go through turn 1, and as he makes his way through the right-hander here, you can see Field goes a little bit deep. Delcom comes back in as they go into the braking zone here, and Delcom looks for a move, but he's forced to look to the outside, and Field literally driving on the limit here in order to stay with Voss, and Delcom is there ready to pounce whenever Field makes a mistake. It's almost as if Field's between a rock and a hard place. He can't get past the rock solid defence of Voss, and neither can he get away from the hard place that is Delcom. He's right in the middle of it, and it's so difficult right now because any mistakes he makes and he drops back to P3, he gives Delcom the opportunity to go on the hunt for the race win, and that's what Delcom's waiting for. You can see he's been so patient. Now, he was in that attacking position, but he couldn't quite make it work, so he's now got to be the one who waits. But given the fact they've only got 9 minutes to go now and counting, will Delcom find a way back into that P2? as we ride on board with Vos once again here, our race leader, and the Frenchman in the number 222 car here. The three Porsches all just sliding their way down the straight here, left to right, and as they make their way in towards turn 8 here, you're going to see, I think Field will close up quite dramatically here into the braking zone. I think Vos as well will be looking to nurse the car into this trail zone, as you can see how close Field gets. Field really on the offensive through turns 8 and 9. They're trying to find a way to get on the offensive as they go through Bomb Hole and now into Coram, but this is where Vos just starts to hold on. He has this nailed for the time being, or at least we think he has it nailed through Coram into Murray Corner as they make their way into the left-hander of turn 12. They've got only about approximately 4 to 5 more laps to go as they go down the straight once again, and Field is not quite as close this time, but you see in the rear of your picture you do have Bartle closing up as well, as we see here that Vos pulling onto the racing line, closing off Field here. Field going onto that racing line early as if to try and block off Vos and taking the racing line there if he could get close enough, but you can see the three of them so close together, and Field looking for a potential move down into Montreal. He can't find it, but he gets the better run out the corner, but he gets boxed in behind Vos, and as a result Field cannot get the momentum that he needs to get the attack down into turn 3, and this gives Delcom the opportunity to go on the offensive, or does it, as they all make their way through and they're inseparable. Their lap times are nearly identical. Vos is the slowest of the three of them by 2 tenths by comparison, but it is, well, by a tenth. Field is a tenth faster than Vos, and Delcom is a tenth faster than Field, but they're all so bunched up right now that they are in that inseparable position. As meanwhile, I can tell you that in the battle for P6 that the Flowing is still ahead of Atkinson by a very small margin, and here it is, as you can see that Atkinson had gone for the move into turn 2, but he wasn't able to find it this time, so he's still there. But meanwhile, coming back to the battle for the race lead, if only we could have 2 cameras on screen at the same time to show you both of these battles all the way down to the end. We know that Vos again holding on for the time being, but we have got Bartle in the rear of your camera shot. He's just watching. I think he's got popcorn in the front of that Bentley, and he's just simply watching the spectacle of the three Porsches battling time and time again with 6.5 minutes remaining now. And I really think that if Vos can hold on for this long, this proves his credentials and his chance of going for the championship come the end of the season, because this is phenomenal driving for the Frenchman to hold on under such intense pressure. He made one mistake at Imola and it cost him the win, but with 6 minutes to go, he has been infallible so far. He's only got to hold on for what is now approximately another 4 laps. That's all is between him and being on the top step of that podium, and Field would so desperately love to make it a turkey of race wins right now. Those 3 race wins back to back. He's got 2 already. He'd love a 3rd. Will he look for the move on the inside into Montreal this time? No. He thinks about it, but again, it's the same story. Another lap. He looks for it. He has the momentum under braking, but he can't get on the power, and that's where Vos causes the gap to open up. As meanwhile, in that battle for P6, we can see Atkinson right there behind Leflate. In fact, the closest he's ever been. So Atkinson's going to have a chance here in the battle for P6 as they come across the line to go on to lap 39. Atkinson made to go the long way round if he's going to do it into turn 1. This is going to be some brave stuff from the Bentley driver as the camera pans round here. And come on, cameraman, rotate that camera. And as they make their way through turn 1, he's going on the brakes into turn 2. He can't quite do it. He has to back out once again, but Atkinson's so close to the back of the Flowy. But meanwhile, back up front, I can tell you that Vos has had a poor run out of 6 this time as they go up into Williams. You can see that Field is the closest he's ever been in the drag race down the line from the Bentley straight all the way down to turn number 8 here. There is no change. Vos just has enough speed, and I think Field's downforce setup is just killing his straight line speed a little bit as they go into 8, and Field looks inside, but he's not quite there. He just doesn't have the straight line speed pickup in the slipstream off of the back of Vos's car, and he hasn't got the speed. He's got to do it in a braking zone to a corner. He can't afford for there to be a long straight. He hasn't got the acceleration, and that's what Vos is capitalising on. You can see whenever they get a run down the straight, he feels safe, but it's as soon as they go into the corners, that's where Vos is worried, because Phil can hold those higher apex speeds because of the downforce setup. And as they come down here, it will be the case that once again he'll look to go defensive initially across the timing line, but Field this time is very close here. In fact, he's so close he's going to try and hold to the outside through turn 1, but Field has to back off. There's not enough line alongside in order to get the move done, but will he snap to the inside here? You can see he looks for it, but Delcom's also there in the back of your picture. He goes up the inside, does Delcom. It's a little bit of a door run, but he makes the move for P2, and they all make it through safely. My goodness, that was so close, and Vos just holds on a little bit longer as Delcom up into P2 right now. I can't believe my eyes. 4 more minutes to go here. We've had a change for P2. Delcom's been waiting, and now the Belgian has to go on the offensive, but Field immediately coming back. He looks to the inside into Agostini. There's contact, and Delcom is spun, and as a result, Field spins, comes down the corner, but Bartel is collected by Delcom, and as he makes his way out the corner, fortunately for him, he does make it through, but as a result, Delcom has dropped down the order, and surely I think the stewards are going to be taking a very dark look on that one. But with that, it means that Vos is now the best part of 2 seconds ahead of Field, and at this point I think Field knows that something's coming, because Delcom has dropped all the way down to P4 and Bartel is now up into P3. What a sudden change of events now. I think Field just got a little too hot-headed. It was definitely worth the attempt, but he was just not enough alongside to go for it, but he committed to it, and he's going to chase down Vos now. But I do think it is going to be the case that Delcom will be absolutely kicking down the door of the stewards room after this one, saying where's the penalty for that one, given the fact that we have seen penalties for contact like that. But we will wait and see, of course. I'm not blaming anyone for anything along those lines. Be sure to let me know what your thoughts are in the chat as well. But right now, Vos, I think, is cruising to a potential win here. He is losing time to Field. Field has already cut that gap down to 1.4 seconds, but I do think some stewardship is going to be in the works here. As meanwhile, I can tell you that Lefloic has still managed to hold off Atkinson. Atkinson is still in P7. He's there. He's been there for so long right now that you'd think that Bentley was an appendage on the back of that Porsche, and he's there 3 tenths away every lap. He's trying to find a way through, but he can't find a way past the Porsche of Marvin Lefloic with 2 laps to go after this one. But he gets a really solid run here, Atkinson. This is the best possible run he could get out of Murray's corner onto another lap here. And as they make their way down the start finish line, you can see Lefloic immediately saying to Atkinson, look, you are not coming through. You're going to go all the way around the outside if you're going to try this. And as they make their way into turn 1, it is the case that Atkinson cannot find a way for the time being, but he gets a really good cut to the inside out of turn 1, and Atkinson's on the offensive here. He goes up the inside into Montreal corner, and you can see Lefloic just closing the door a little bit, but not enough. And as a result, Atkinson's on his inside, and Atkinson's up into P6. And now Lefloic trying to flash his lights here, but Atkinson's having none of it. The British driver up into P6. Can he hold on? Well, he's got the fast charging Porsche of Lefloic behind him. He goes defensive into Agostini. He expects that Lefloic's going to go all the way around the outside to get it done. He looks at the move around the outside, but he can't find it. He goes for the cutback, but he hasn't got the momentum. Atkinson up into P6, but Lefloic is throwing everything at the Bentley to try and find a way through. So much so, I think he wants to throw some grass at him off the apex of turn 5 as they go through Oggies and up towards Williams once again. And you can see Atkinson under so much pressure now to hold on. He goes a little bit wide on entry into turn 7. And as they make their way out of Williams here, I think it's the case that Bentley is literally on its limit as Field picks up a drive-through penalty for the contact with Delcom. We knew it was coming, and what that will mean, ladies and gentlemen, is that it will be Bartel who is going to be on the second stage. Oh my goodness, and Lefloic gets it wrong under braking. He goes sideways at turn 8, releasing Atkinson. He pushed too hard in the end, and you could see Lefloic is absolutely petrified of that. It was very sudden, and Coloridis now has got Walker behind him, so that means Delcom as well. Well, it looks as though Delcom and Field both with drive-through penalties. This is a surprise. We're going to find out as to why that happened very shortly, folks, but this means that Bartel is going to be coming home in P2 at this rate. As we look up to our race leader right now, they are on what is the final lap, and we can see that it is Vos. He's under pressure from Field, but Field has got a drive-through penalty which he'll have to take at the end of the race, so that will be a time penalty added on. So as a result here, Vos is going to be the winner, I'm sure, at this point, as he's got a huge amount of traffic here, and he makes his way through the corner, and we can see that Tardioli right now in P12 is just coming across that timing line here as the timer has come down right now. And he crosses the line to go on to the final lap. But our race leader of Vos, he has got Field around him, and really it has been a story. This has been a redemption arc for Vos. He's had 3 pole positions and no success that converted it into a win. But now it's his 4th time. It is his 4th chance. He qualified on pole. He fell down after Field made the move, which the stewards frowned upon and gave Field a 10-second penalty. But this time, as he makes his way through Coram Corner, he's got Murray's Corner to go. It's the last lap, and he's going to do it 4 times of asking, and on the 4th attempt, he does manage it. It's going to be a win for Mathis Voss from France, from the Intruder Racing team, as he crosses the line as the winner. Field in P2 there with a very valiant effort, but I think that's going to be a bit further down the order. It's a 30-second time penalty, and it will be Ross Bartle who in the end comes home in what will be P2 ahead of Delcom, who was P4, but in the end that will be dropped with a 30-second penalty as well. And then it will be Crewcamp who comes home in P3. Brett Crewcamp from South Africa. The 2 Grumpy Monkeys finding themselves on the podium, P2 and P3. The South Africans will be jumping up and down in joy. That is Crewcamp coming home in P3, and I think that's Atkinson behind who will be coming home in P4. And then Lafloic, of course, with that mistake, still gets to come home in what will be a P, I think it's a P5, or it might be a P6, depending on the time penalties. Coloridis there, it will be in P7 or P8 once all is said and done. Walker will be in P9 behind him, and then it will be Faulkner who comes home in P10, rounding off our top 10, and Loisinger there only missing out on a top 10 by 1 place, bringing that BMW home in a solid P11 ahead of Tardioli. And then Linden on his return to the circuit comes home in P14, I think just missing out, well no, he comes home in P13 I should say, just pipping what was at the time there Melkowski to the finish line in P14, and Joris Apple comes home in P15 once all is said and done. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen, a phenomenal race, and indeed Voss right now will be screaming in that cockpit in joy. Last time out he missed out on the win because of one little mistake, but as he makes his way round now and back to the pit lane, he's finally done it. He's finally achieved a win after 4 attempts, and if anything, this just goes to show you should never give up. You should stay in it to the very end, and Voss has done a fantastic job. We'll be back very shortly for those post-race interviews, ladies and gentlemen. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we are back for the purposes of our interviews. Now, I will tell you that Matthews Voss has informed us that he will not be able to do an interview tonight. He's absolutely exhausted after winning, but I think he's over the moon with the fact he was able to pull off the win. And yeah, I think he just wants some time to enjoy the win. Indeed, a very happy day for Voss with the fact that for the 4th time of trying, he finally brought home the win. And I think to him it means a lot right now, and he just needs some time to absorb it and enjoy it. So as a result, we won't be bringing you an interview with our race winner, but of course feel free to give him a round of applause for the fact a phenomenal drive, and indeed to hold on in the end. Fantastic work, and we look forward to seeing what Voss is able to do. And he's just messaged me to say that it was incredible and it was very hard trying to defend at this level, and congratulations to both Romain Delcom and Yves Fild for their race. Obviously it didn't work out in the end for Delcom or Field with everything that happened, but Voss was the one to stand tall at the end of it all and be right on the top step, and it's a huge number of points for the Frenchman going into the second half of the season. So without further ado, we are now going to move on to our interview with our P2 man, and that is with Ross Bartle. And just to clarify, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of those final standings, after the 30-second penalty was applied to Yves Fild's race time, he finished in 3rd place by only 0.6 of a second ahead of our P4 man. So as a result, he will be on the podium and join us for an interview. But we're going to start off with our P2 man of Ross Bartle. Hello Ross, can you hear me?
Oh, Paul, yeah.
Congratulations on another podium finish, P2 at Snetterton. How does it feel?
Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't quite know how to process that one because I wasn't expecting that with 2 laps to go. I think the most action I saw was on lap 2 and the second last of the race. So, yeah, pretty boring up until that point. Had a tough first stint. I think in that battling on the second lap, I must have lost pressure in the left-hand side, both front and rear. So tyre pressures were much lower than what they should have been. For that whole first stint, I really struggled. But yeah, good result in the end. Tough luck for the guys up front, but yeah.
Definitely. Just taking a step back, we'll come on to the battle up front in the end and how you benefited from what happened. But you're saying in that first stint you had the issues with the left-hand tyres, and just the first stint was very difficult. How did you find it on that open lap? Because we saw a lot of contact going through turns 1, 2, and even later on lap at Agostini there was an instant as well. Were you involved in that, or were you able to just stay clear of that and just focus on building up the places?
Yeah, I can't remember much from lap 2, to be honest. I know I got into a bit of a battle with one of the Porsches for 3rd. And got pushed out a bit wide. We were side by side for quite a while, and then it was just on the wrong side of the road at the wrong time, and the train sort of came through, so I went from 4th to 6th or 7th, I think, and then yeah, I just tried to settle in, but then realizing that the tires weren't exactly where they should be, so that was a bit difficult.
It's a difficult one, but still you kept in there. And particularly going into the second half of the race, so stint number 2, was there a change of approach in stint 2, or was it just more of the same but keep it consistent?
Yeah, I think once the stop was done, kind of knew the pressures would be back to normal. So it was just a case of trying to stay consistent and see if we could catch the front 4. I sort of had pace at times, but it wasn't as often as it should have been. The guys in front just put in the odd quicker lap and got a bit of a gap, and obviously when they started fighting, then it became a bit more.
Definitely. And then towards the end, when you saw them fighting, because we kept seeing in the camera shot, we'd see the 3 Porsches all squabbling over the lead, and then we'd just see in the background this menacing looking Bentley chasing after them 5 seconds down the road, just watching. Was it sort of just sitting there with the popcorn in hand waiting to see what would happen?
I think it was exactly that, to be honest. There was a couple laps there where I was almost a second lap faster, but I think it was just purely, I think it was Voss might have been defending a bit up front there and sort of holding everyone behind. So yeah, the eyes got a bit big every time I took a second out of them, but then they would have a nice clean lap the following one and we'd be back to the same gap. Yeah, much to my surprise, they had a bit of contact, and one of the cars I met halfway into the turn, he decided to pull off the road at the same time I was driving around him, and we collected each other, but luckily, yeah, not too much damage for me.
Yes, we saw that. That was Delcom, I believe. Agostini, as you were trying to make your way around the corner, there was contact. We thought at first, the way the camera angle looked, as though you'd been sent flying off the circuit and you were going to fall victim literally on the final lap to some drama. But it wasn't, fortunately, to be that case there. You're able to carry on. But
yeah.
With that in mind, and now that the first half of the season has been completed, what are your thoughts going into the second half as of next week?
I think it's looking a bit better than the first half, certainly for me. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. My practice time is going to be a bit limited for the next race. Luckily, we at least know the track, so it's going to be a case of next week, Tuesday, probably the hour before the race, I'm practicing. So I think that one's going to be damage limitation for myself, but we'll see how we go.
And the last question, really, given the fact that we've got the two Grumpy Monkey machines of yourself and also Brett Crewcamp. We saw Crewcamp finishing, I believe, once it was considered, I think it was P5, although I'm not 100% sure on that.
P4.
I was P4 in the end. How does it feel to see the pair of the Grumpy Monkey machines in the top 5 together?
Yeah, I think it's really good. Brett's been a bit more consistent the entire season, been ahead of the championship. I think up until now, probably. So yeah, it was good, and he just missed third by 0.6 of a second with the drive-throughs and penalties and that. So unfortunately, it could have been two of us on the podium, but yeah, I think he did pretty well. Struggled a bit with race pace, but held the guys off at the end. So yeah, very proud.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. Well, with that, congratulations on the P2 once again, and we look forward to seeing what you can do next time out in a week's time.
Shot, Paul. Cheers.
All the best. So Ross there, definitely very happy with the P2, and you can hear it there, that relief as well, with the fact that he was almost taken away with him at turn number 4 on the final lap with Delcom having that mistake, but bringing the car home in P2, and his teammate, albeit they're not teammates out on circuit of course, but they race for the same team, i.e. that of Brett Crewcamp, just missing out on that P3 by 0.6 of a second. A lot of pride there, and definitely the pace going forward, but it may be a difficult one next week, but we will wait and see. But now let's have a chat with our P3 man of Yves Fild. Hello Yves, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So congratulations on P3. Difficult race today out there. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, honestly, I'm a bit... Yeah, I don't feel great about it. Completely messed up the last few minutes. I'm really sorry for that one. Yeah, it started with qualifying and I couldn't put in at least one good lap. It was a bit of a mess. But yeah, try my best, and in the end I tried too hard. Yeah, but still P3, that's quite nice.
I mean, it was some phenomenal racing all the way through. The final 20 minutes were literally just a roller coaster. But before we get to all that, just take us through the start of the race. Yeah, the difficult qualifying session, but you were still, if I remember correctly, on, I think it was either the second or the third, I think you were P4 in qualifying. Just take us through that first stint. Was the aim just like we've seen previously from yourself, just to gradually build up the pace and build up the places, or was there a different approach here at Snetterton?
Yeah, just try to... Because I knew I had a great pace on this track, so I tried to make all out of it, and yeah, just try to stay on track, and I could go through in the first corner. I think I just landed on P2 and was quite happy with that. And yeah, I just try to use all the pace I have and close the gap to Voss. And yeah, I had a little bit more fuel and tried to do a longer stint in the first section of the race.
Yeah, so we saw that, and when you picked up the 10-second penalty for the contact with Voss when you made the first pass to the win in stint number 1, what was the aim? Just take us through, did you adapt your driving style or your approach because of the 10-second penalty, or was it just the case of get the penalty out the way and then go hunting once again on stint 2?
Yeah, it was just trying much more. I was way more aggressive than in the first part. Because yeah, 10 seconds is 10 seconds. It's not a small gap to build up. But yeah, it worked quite well. But I didn't knew the 10 seconds. I had to put on the 10 seconds in the pit lane. So yeah, after the pit stop I landed in P3 and just try to move into places. Yeah.
And then coming on to then what happened towards the end, it was I'll say this now, regardless of how you feel come the end of it, just have your head held up higher, because the viewership, everybody, including myself, loved the freeway battle between yourself, Voss and Delcom for the win at the end. Of course, it didn't work out the way you wanted it, nor did it work out for Delcom, but just take us through what it was like coming up on the back of that battle from between Delcom and Voss and getting involved. How were you trying to play it?
Yeah, I was just hoping for a small gap to send in, but yeah, I was so nervous about it because I didn't want it to end like how it did. And yeah, it's just a lot of pressure from behind and you want to keep up with the guy in front. Yeah, it's so intense.
And then with regards to the battles yourself, there was one point where you managed to get yourself up into P2. You were all over the back of Voss for lap after lap, but you just couldn't find a way through. And the one thing we noticed was it seemed on the straights, particularly down the Bentley straight and also the centre straight, Voss just seemed to have that small straight line speed advantage. Was that the case? You just couldn't benefit from the toe?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, drive high downforce setups all the way through. And yeah, I had a little bit of disadvantage in the straights, but in the braking zone I was much better there. But yeah, I couldn't find a gap.
And then obviously Delcom came back to take P2 off of you with that move, and then with the remainder of the race, just take us through what happened when the incident occurred.
Yeah, this was completely messed up. I shouldn't have done this because yeah, he had a great overtake on me. I didn't expect it, and yeah, I was just trying too hard, but yeah, I crashed into him, which obviously isn't great, and I feel pretty bad for that.
Well, to be fair, it's great to hear that you're owning up to it, and at the same time we can see that definitely you're one of those drivers who doesn't want to win through instants out on circuit and wants to drive clean. I don't think anybody can take that from you, and I'm sure Delcom, whilst he may be perhaps seeing a little bit of red at the moment, will come back later on this evening or tomorrow and think there was some fantastic racing, because it was definitely great to watch. But looking ahead to the second half of the season then, so you're the championship leader at the moment by a considerable margin. This P3 today means you extend your lead over the field. What are you thinking about the second half of the season?
Yeah, that's the track is yeah. What is the next track? I don't know.
It's Misano.
Yeah, that's quite good because I love Nürburgring, I love Misano. Belgium is not my thing, but yeah, I hope for the best, and I'm quite excited for it.
Oh, that's good to hear. Well, we wish you all the best in the season going forward, but congratulations on the P3 today. I appreciate it wasn't the best day, but still, well done on being on the podium once again, and we look forward to seeing what you're able to achieve in the second half of this championship.
Thank you, and have a great evening.
You too, my friend. So you can hear there from Yves, just was one of those days where I think it's a bittersweet day. He's on the podium, yes, but it wasn't the way he wanted it to occur, particularly with the incident between himself and Delcom come Agostini on the penultimate lap. But still, Great battling, and what you have to consider from it is the fact that at the end of the day, he's owned up to it, and that's something which takes a lot of guts from our drivers as well, because obviously they'll be hot-headed, they want to be in the heat of the moment, they want to be the fastest, but definitely Field in that commanding position going into the second half of the season. He's got a sizable gap, as we'll see when we come around to talk about the championship standings at the start of round 5, but definitely one to learn from, but at the same time, great battling for the win between the 3 Porsche drivers, but in the end it was Voss who took the win, Bartel being able to pick up the P2 from the pieces of the instance, and Field retaining that P3 by only 0.6 of a second once the 30-second penalty was applied. But with that, thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. It has been one phenomenal race today, and indeed this has been the conclusion of the first half of the season. And if you want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community and our events, why not check out the NXTGEN Racing official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, or our official Facebook group, that's facebook.com/group/nextgenracing. We also want to say a big thank you to our partners without whom this would not be possible. That's the SimGrid, that's thesimgrid.com, and also Coach Dave Academy, that's coachdaveacademy.com. But with that, I have been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit in a Spit, and next time we'll be heading to Misano. In a week's time, come back for it on the 20th of July at the same time, 7 British Summer Time or UTC+1 for more racing action. But until next time, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.